Great. So for those of you who have not registered on the virtual Converve platform, you can do that. If you're here with us in the room, you can just scan this QR code that you see in the posters or in your screen. If you are with us virtually, welcome. That is probably because you are already registered, and well done. The reason why it would be good for you to register is because you can organize B2B meetings with each other on the platform virtually. So those of you who are here physically and those of you not here but in presence with us can still meet each other. And I think what will be interesting for a lot of you is that on this platform now, we had about, quite strangely, equally in thirds, we have 30% of our registered participants are investors and funds, 30% are SMEs and companies and startups, and the other 30% are what we call stakeholders, and they are people who are, and organizations who are supporting businesses in the blue economy. So they are business coaches, they are trade associations, they are innovation communities. So it's definitely worth being part of the community, plugging in and trying to see who is there. I think we're all trying to get used to this hybrid world that we are forming and living in now. And so these interactions are both virtual and physical. And I think this event is a good kind of example of how we can interact and find better ways maybe to collaborate with each other. A few housekeeping rules as we begin. So here you see reflected on your screen is the agenda for this morning. So we are going to have some welcome remarks from DG Mare, and we're very fortunate to have with us physically here Lorella, who is from who's an aquaculture expert, and she is with DG Mare. She's going to be introduced as well by Hervé and Luisa, who are both from the European Aquaculture Society, and we're very honored to have their presence with us. It's a very high level, and they all took time from their busy schedules to be with us today. This event is live streamed, so you are being recorded. I'm hoping you all look great, audience, by the way. You're all very good looking, so I hope you don't mind. There's a camera on you. Occasionally, might pan over. Somebody's going to come by just with a tick box for you to say whether you consent, to being recorded or not. If you don't, that's absolutely fine as well. We'll just make sure to blur you out when we put up the recording of today's event. So it's a full day, and we've got after this panel session, we have Vincent Favrel from CINEA, who's going to be talking a bit more about funding opportunities in sustainable aquaculture. And then after that, we've got Mauro Randone from the World Wildlife Foundation, the WWF, and he's going to be talking about integrating sustainable financial principles into aquaculture-related investments. Then we've got an investor spotlight, and after that, a pitch session. I should mention that one of our most active investors, Olivier Rebaud, is also physically in the room with us today, and we're really, really happy about that. He's part of the panel discussion that we're about to have. So just a few words first about BlueInvest and what we stand for. BlueInvest is an EU initiative. It's an EU-funded initiative to boost investment and innovation into a sustainable blue economy. We are an assistance mechanism that supports investment readiness and access to finance for SMEs and startups who have sustainable blue technologies that we can help accelerate into markets. So the way that we do that is we've established in the last 3 years a community, both online and offline, which brings together entrepreneurs, innovators, investors, and funds, as well as stakeholders. And within this community, we organize events where all of you can meet and hopefully have a lot of meaningful interactions with each other. We have a fund, the BlueInvest Fund and the BlueInvest Grants, which are enablers of this BlueInvest platform. We have the readiness assistance through which we provide business coaching for up to 200 SMEs who have high potential technologies that we can speed up in their commercialization process. And we have a project pipeline through which these companies can meet investors. So we help investors with their deal flow. We have the BlueInvest Academy is part of our digital platform to provide training for companies through online courses and training materials. So we're now in our third year of operation. We've got 1,064 community members. About 115 companies have already completed the readiness assistance. Over 50 of them have gotten credible introductions to interested investors. And we have already confirmed our success, at least 20 success stories where they have completed investment rounds. We have a 97% satisfaction rate for the program and the events. And we have about 227 companies showcased in the project pipeline. And hopefully this is going to, continue because the idea is to make the community sustainable, to be driven by not just the companies and the stakeholders who are in it, but also the investors who are more and more interested in setting up blue funds and impact-related funds. We've got a deal flow newsletter for those of you investors who are logged in and engaging with us today. You can sign up to our club of investors and also contact the team to get to know some of the companies and some of the showcase projects that we have. We've got a few events coming up, and I've got 4 of them featured on the screen here. We have an e-pitch session. We organize these with Euroquity, with BPI France, and then we usually have about more than 30 investors that come to meet 5 companies who come to pitch in a relevant sector. We have 2 more, actually 3 more workshops coming up. So we will be at Ecomundo for those of you who are coming there, and I hope you go. We are going to do a thematic workshop on the green-blue bioeconomy. We will be at Sealogy in Ferrara, and we are going to have a workshop on sea-based supply chains. And we will be at Algae Europe. So those of you who are in the algae sector, especially for those of you in this room, we are going to be part of Algae Europe as well. So I hope you go into our website. We're in the European Maritime Forum, and have a look at the events or contact our team. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Lorella de la Cruz. She is the Deputy Head of Unit for Aquaculture Maritime Spatial Planning from DG Mare, and she is here to give us welcome remarks on behalf of the Commission. Lorella.
Yes, thank you very much, Catherine. Good morning to everyone. I'm really happy to be here today at this event to welcome you, but also to present you what is the policy context of what we're doing in aquaculture. I would like to start by mentioning that my intervention is about letting you know about the efforts that the Commission, Member States and stakeholders have made in terms of providing a vision for the future growth of the sector in the EU. And this is not only a vision, there's also concrete actions that have been defined, identified for different stakeholders for a more sustainable, competitive and resilient aquaculture in the EU, and also a global reference in terms of resilience, competitiveness and sustainability. Well, first, I would like to refer to the fact that what I would like to explain here today is the new strategic guidelines that the Commission adopted on the 12th of May. And these are strategic guidelines whose title is For More Competitive and Sustainable and Competitive EU Aquaculture for the period 2021-2030. But before that, just to understand what is the role of these guidelines, I would like to briefly mention the basics of EU aquaculture policy, if you let me. So, as you see in this slide, we have, first of all, as you know, EU legislation that applies to aquaculture activities in the EU and aquaculture products in the EU, notably legislation that is related to animal health and public health, also environmental protection, and also the placing of products in the market. But beyond that, most of the competence related to development of aquaculture relies on member states. And what the Common Fisheries Policy Regulation has done is to establish a system of coordination, a strategic coordination between the Commission and member states on the development of the sector, because one of the objectives of the Common Fisheries Policy, in fact, is to ensure the sustainable development of the sector for various reasons: food security, also for decreasing the pressure, increasing pressure of demand on wild stocks, wild fishery stocks, and also for the jobs and economic development opportunities that aquaculture can bring to the EU. Part of this coordination, strategic coordination, is precisely the strategic guidelines of the Commission. The first set of guidelines were adopted in 2013, and on the basis of those guidelines, the member states developed national strategic plans that were, in a way, translating those guidelines to their realities, the realities of the sector, and also establishing specific targets for the sector. All these instruments have been reviewed very recently, and of course, the strategic guidelines I referred to that were adopted in May are a revision of the existing strategic guidelines. And the member states have been invited, in fact, to review their national strategic plans in view of these strategic guidelines. I would like to refer to the fact that this new strategy for aquaculture has a new momentum, because aquaculture has been recognized in the context of the European Green Deal and related strategies as having an important role to develop, to achieve the objectives of these strategies, notably on decarbonization of the food system, but beyond the food system. There's a recognition, for example, in the European Green Deal of the potential of aquaculture as a lower carbon footprint source of food and feed compared to other ways of farming inland. The same in the Farm to Fork strategy, but more importantly, there is a call for an acceleration of the shift to sustainable food systems. The Farm to Fork initiative even establishes specific objectives and targets for aquaculture. The first one is a significant increase in organic aquaculture. The second one I would like to mention is the 50% reduction in the sales of antibiotics, both in aquaculture and other types of farming. And one thing also to remark is that the strategy also calls for the Commission to launch an initiative to promote the production, the use and innovative consumption and innovative use of algae in the EU. And this is an initiative that will come to light next year. I would like to refer to the key objectives of these guidelines. In fact, as I mentioned, it's about growth of the sector, about sustainability, resilience, and competitiveness. The guidelines aim at consolidating the lessons learned with the changes of practices between member states, with EU-funded projects on research and innovation, and with an implementation of the national strategic plans of the member states. As I mentioned, it also aims at ensuring that aquaculture has a role to play in meeting societal demands, and notably the agenda of the European Green Deal. And finally, to also try to maximize the impact of the existing tools and instruments to support the sector in the performance of the sector, the actual performance of the sector. There are 4 specific objectives, in fact, in the strategic guidelines. The first of all is building resilience and competitiveness for EU aquaculture. Second one, and also very important, ensuring that aquaculture participates in the green transition. Third, ensuring social acceptance and information to the consumer about EU aquaculture. And last but not least, increasing knowledge and innovation. And of course, In all these elements, especially on knowledge and innovation, investment has a particular role to play, and also particular opportunities for investment here. Let me refer briefly to the areas of work, because these are 4 horizontal objectives under which we have identified 13 different areas of work. So for building competitiveness and resilience, we have identified as crucial areas for further work the access to space and water for aquaculture activities. And there, the role of planning is key, and identification areas suitable for aquaculture. Ensuring a streamlined and transparent regulatory and administrative framework, including for licensing of new farms. Animal health and public health remains a challenge and needs to be managed, and more research and more better good practices have to come here. Climate change, of course, actually a threat already nowadays to the sector as other sectors. How to adapt the sector to climate change, and how to make the sector to contribute to mitigation of climate change impact. Also promoting producer and market organizations to increase the bargaining power of producers, and the vertical integration, control and traceability of products in the market, also very important. And finally, but also very important, diversification and adding value to production. Under the heading of participating in the green transition, that has a special focus in the strategic guidance because of the context, broader context of the European Green Deal objectives, we have 2 aspects: environmental performance, increasing environmental performance, and also in improving animal welfare further in aquaculture practices. There are certainly high standards in the EU aquaculture production, but there's margin for doing more, especially when we have to participate in the green transition. So, for example, environmental performance is not only about working on further limiting potential impacts of the activity in the environment, for example. It's also about promoting low-impact aquaculture, and aquaculture that also serves to provide services for ecosystems, for example, or also decarbonization, like, for example, carbon capture. The third horizontal objective I mentioned is social acceptance and consumer information. Certainly, there's no real prospect for growth of the sector if there's no recognition by the communities, by the citizens and the consumers of the benefits of this sector for them, and also addressing early any concerns that may arise in the development of the sector, for example, in terms of environmental impacts, or in terms of conflict with other activities, fisheries, tourism, etc. So this is a very important point. So there are 3 areas of work: communication on EU aquaculture, explaining to the consumer and the citizen what is aquaculture, why aquaculture is important, how is it done in the EU, and what is going to be done in the future. And this is especially mention the benefits, because very often we only hear about impacts, negative impacts, but little is known about the benefits of aquaculture. And then integration, better integration in local economies, with synergies with other activities, and with consultation, early consultation with local stakeholders. And finally, transparent data and monitoring. The last horizontal objective, also very important, is knowledge and innovation, increasing knowledge and innovation. This is very important for all the objectives that we have referred to before, for sustainability, for resilience, for competitiveness. But this is not only about creating the research and the information. It's about making sure that the knowledge and innovation reaches the sector, that it matches the needs of the sector, and that it is transformed into something that actually happens in the market, in the sector. So for this, obviously, investment is key, but also dissemination of research and innovation. And also ensuring synergies in funded research programs, cooperation, very important cooperation between governments, governmental authorities, industry, the sector, and academia and research, and investors. And well, last but not least, of course, skills development, because the sector is becoming more and more innovative, and we need people skilled, with good skills to work in it. I think I have a problem now with my presentation. Well, I cannot move it any farther for some reason. But I think I can continue with this if necessary. Yeah. Yeah, that's working. Sorry. I would like to refer very briefly to the first implementation steps for these strategic guidelines. Basically, this is a vision. So this is just the start. Now we need to implement this vision, and we need all stakeholders to be part of that implementation. First of all, it's important to get political support. And there, I think we are quite satisfied because member states have confirmed their support to these strategic guidelines. Also, stakeholders have reacted very positively. And we have, for example, the European Parliament that is planning to do a report, and other European institutions that are that have an interest in these strategic guidelines. I would like to refer to something very concrete in terms of what we have delivered so far, that is a brochure to inform the citizen about aquaculture, about EU aquaculture, about the prospects for growth and sustainable development. And this you can find if you're interested in the website of this conference. We will develop an assistance mechanism because part of the actions that we have foreseen for these strategic guidelines are developing detailed guidance documents on different aspects of aquaculture, like access to space, regulatory and administrative framework, environmental performance. So there will be specific guidance documents to be developed by the Commission in consultation with member states, with stakeholders, and we have a mechanism to support us with that, and that would also, in fact, provide some technical assistance to those member states that are willing to follow these guidance documents. And then last but not least, we are planning to launch a communication campaign, an EU-wide communication campaign next year, possibly, with the help of member states for dissemination. And this is obviously to make citizens aware of the importance of aquaculture. And yeah, I have still problems with the. Anyway, I think I'll stop here. I would invite you to, yeah, here we are. I would invite you to view, in fact, the video of a stakeholders event that we organized last May, involving all types of stakeholders. It's still available on this link. We have also involved investors, investment funds, and it was very interesting discussion that took place there, involving also our commissioner, the presidency of the Council of the European Union at the time, Parliament, etc. So I really invite you to visit this link and enjoy this stakeholders event. And after this, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lorella, for that. That's excellent. I would like to then give the floor to Hervé Migaud. He's the president of the European Aquaculture Society. He's going to give us welcome remarks because we're co-organizing this with them. And then after that, he and Luisa Valente, board member of the EAS, will be moderating the panel discussion. Hervé?
Good morning. Oh, like this. Yeah, good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to thank BlueInvest for inviting the EAS also in the forum and the panel discussion that we're going to have. And on behalf of the European Aquaculture Society, I'd like to welcome you to the session today, but also to the Aquaculture Europe 2021, which I think is really a great success, and finally being able to see each other, which makes such a difference. I'd like to say a few words about the European Aquaculture Society for maybe those of you that are not too familiar with it. So it was founded quite a while ago, in 1976, and we have a set of objectives. So it's really more about what the IS stand for. And these objectives are really about promoting contact between all the interested parties in aquaculture, but also to facilitate knowledge exchange between stakeholders and bringing together scientists, industry, government, and investors, which obviously is very relevant for today. We also want to promote sponsorship of multidisciplinary research, because there is a lot of competencies outside aquaculture also. So we're trying quite hard to bring a community together and try to see how we can be innovative or transformative for the future. And the aim is to develop a sustainable aquaculture. And finally, we also want to enhance cooperation, really. This is really important. So what we do is we organize this event every year. last one was in Berlin in 2019. We are bringing obviously all of these different stakeholders. So I'm really delighted that we can co-host the forum today, BlueInvest, within the program of the EAS. I think it's an extremely good fit. The theme is oceans of opportunities, and we know there are loads of opportunities. Investment is really very important. There's a lot of innovation that's been coming through the last decade. I think aquaculture has seen quite a radical change. I just wanted to name a few on this kind of a transformation that we've seen to move towards a sustainable aquaculture sector. We've got like production systems. I'm sure that all of you will know the massive change that we've seen towards land-based recirculation, offshore, but also aquaponics, multi-trophic. So a lot of innovation really happening over a short period of time. If you look into the aqua feeds, I think it's been also an extremely innovative sector of our recent years. I could actually name a few about new alternative ingredients that are still coming and are being developed today. Of course, there's insect meal, for example. There is GM plants. There is also macroalgae that's used now a lot for oil sources. Single cell protein that is done by capturing the CO2. So a lot of innovation in this field. I cannot not mention health, because obviously health is critical and welfare. And this is again another field where you have a lot of innovation, a lot of entrepreneurship, developing vaccines and a number of different new health products that we also put in the feed. And finally, because this is the field where, as a scientist, I'm the most interested in, it's breeding and genetics. And I just cannot mention how important innovation in this area is for the future, really, of the sector and the industry. And we see like a lot of new technologies coming in, like gene editing, but also like genomic selections that is now being applied really for real. 10 years ago, we're thinking about it. Now today it's real. It is in the real world. So a lot of innovation, but there's still a lot to be done. That's clear. We have still massive challenges when you're looking at a circular economy. There's climate change, there's waste, there's pollution, but there's also the need to grow the sector really sustainably. So I welcome again the opportunity to join today, representing the board of the European Aquaculture Society, and I hope that it's going to be a successful event.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to be opening the first panel session. So, and in this session, we're going to have two speakers, and then it's going to be open to you all for asking questions. So the first speaker is David Bassett. I've known David for quite a few years because we are located in the same part of the world. In the UK. So David is the Secretary General of Etip. So that's a European Aquaculture Technology and Innovation Platform. He is involved in the management, the representation, the support, also the strategic direction for the ATP. He also been involved before as a senior advisor, project manager of Etip. I'm sure that some of you will know about this project. Which I think was very successful. It was about international development and support action, funded through also the European Commission. And a previous life, not so long ago, David also was the Chief Executive Officer of the British trout industry in the UK. So,
there we are. Am I correct for the microphone? I am. Good morning, everybody. Bom dia a todos, as we are in Portugal. It's a delight to be invited to present at this event. It's the first time I've presented to a live audience for 20 months, obviously. The greatest privilege of presenting these days is you get to take your face mask off for 10 minutes and breathe in some fresh air again without getting hot. For those of you I've not yet had the opportunity to meet in person at the conference, or for those of you who are tuning in online, as Hervé says, thank you for my introduction. My name's David Bassett, the General Secretary of Etip. Etip is the European Aquaculture Technology and Innovation Platform. We are one of 39, there are currently 39 European technology platforms addressing research, technology and innovation, our remit being the aquaculture sector. And that's all aspects of the aquaculture sector: finfish, shellfish, increasingly obviously algae is one of the more exciting emerging sectors, all production systems, freshwater, saltwater, recirculation, and so on and so forth, all aspects of aquaculture. Why is there a technology platform for aquaculture? Well, we were established very much at the encouragement and instigation of the European Commission back in 2007. And there was a perceived need to improve the strategic research and innovation agenda for aquaculture research to ensure that research and development programs, specifically in this case the EU framework programs, were or still are to this day delivering research that can be applied, that isn't just purely academic research, that has a direct application to industry and to the benefit of European citizens, and to ensure that that research will have impact. It's a word, many of us here today will be involved in project consortia. We're all aware that impact is one way that our work has to be measured. And how do we measure that impact? There's much more to it than counting publications, citations, and references. All of those things are very relevant and valid in the academic sector. But there are other ways to measure impact, and a key one of those is commercial application and the development of those research outputs to have tangible benefit and lead towards greater sustainable development of the industry. And that includes jobs, income, and economic development. So it's one of the key aspects of a technology platform to not only be a theoretical exercise, but to actually help facilitate that application to reality. Within aquaculture, I've mentioned the production of fish, shellfish, and algae. There are considerably more applications than that. They're very diverse and they're very varied. So when we're thinking of applications, in addition to the actual product produced, we could be thinking of diagnostics, we could be thinking of software increasingly, we could be thinking of training materials, technology, equipment, aspects of processing the product, aspects of new product development, packaging, distribution, logistics. Across the entire value chain, there are aspects of innovation and commercial application that we should consider. And that goes across all species, and that goes across all sectors. I've witnessed, as Hervé mentioned, I've been fortunate enough to take part in some international collaboration actions funded by the European Commission, looking at European aquaculture elsewhere in the world. And I've seen firsthand the demand and appreciation of the knowledge, expertise and innovation within our sector, particularly on trade visits to South Asia, where there's a real eager hunger for some of the export services that we can provide in addition to the primary product that we produce. The Etip membership, similar to what we hear with the EAS, our membership is drawn from academia, research and the research community, civil society groups and NGOs, and obviously the industry. That's the essence of a multi-stakeholder platform in the technology platform model. And within our membership, we develop a strategic research and innovation agenda, and we pull together a series of recommendations and publication and policy statements, so to speak, all of them available on our website. And we've looked, and our members have they've identified various barriers to overcoming innovation, such as the adoption of collaborative instruments, looking at legislative measures, and we've heard from Lorella the approach that the Commission is taking. And I would here like to pay tribute to some of those initiations that we've seen with the revised strategic guidelines, particularly from the consideration of the high-level political support that the sector is seeing. It's very important to us to see representatives of the Commission, of the Parliament, of the Council, the Committee of the Regions. I recently was at a hearing of the Economic and Social Committee, not least the European commissioners themselves, actually at top table platforms supporting the further development of the sector in the context of the Green Deal, in the context of European sustainability and environmental objectives and targets. The expression "there's no green without blue" is one that's being used by many people in the sector, and that support is very encouraging for us to be able to demonstrate the backing that the sector has. We thank you for that. But some of the other recommendations that came out included technical support, the development of platforms, and accessing funds. And that's why we're so pleased to be at BlueInvest today, because that's exactly the kind of initiation and action that the membership has been requesting and looking at. Specifically, one recommendation was for the presence and identification of incentives to promote investment in aquaculture to ensure longevity of sustainable production. Whether that came from our 2017 Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, particularly looking at structural funds and the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund as an action for doing that. And so with BlueInvest today, we have an example of that happening and providing that direct link between business and investment opportunities that are available. From our membership experience, through our Mirror platform members and our core members, the group that has a particular emphasis for is startups and the micro and SME businesses involved in aquaculture. And I would hope we could consider some of the issues involved there today. The larger companies have less problems accessing finance and particularly securing lending and borrowing. They're in a more stable and established position. The startups are more vulnerable. They have fewer opportunities to access, less leverage, and fewer assets to trade against. So from our membership, some thoughts on what barriers there might be. Well, I've just mentioned one there, assets. In another world, I have some links to terrestrial farming. And a farmer always has their land, traditionally. A farmer has land. It's most likely mortgaged to the hilt, but they still have that land that they're able to look at. Aquaculture is slightly different. And certainly where I am, your licenses are not something that you can trade against. You can't use them in a borrowing sense. So we have to consider assets. We have to consider risk profile. Aquaculture is often not sufficiently understood and established in terms of the knowledge of investor risk profile awareness. And that's an area when we talk about improving knowledge and visibility of the sector. It's not only to consumers, it's not only to media, it's not only to politicians, but from an investment angle, I think we need to concentrate on knowledge awareness within the risk profile. We are a farming sector. I'm not aware of a numeric number given. Again, in the agricultural sector, we always talk of a 7-year cycle to make profit. You have good years, you have bad years, and you average it out, and over 7 is how you look at it. In aquaculture, it's the same. We have good years, we have bad years. There are freak weather incidents, there are climatic conditions, increasingly more so now, as we're all noticing. And so you have to look at it at a more cyclical basis because we are a food production sector. Often an investment linked to that, people are looking for a short-term profile return, and we need to consider perhaps a longer term, a mid to longer term approach for the return on investment. In terms of research, there are funding mechanisms available, there are the framework programs, and there are other funds, but they're often too big or too slow or simply too complex for a small business to be able to access. I'm going to be the first one to use it. We were talking before the session started, it's an expression we all hate, but there's also the concept of the valley of death, that gap in between funding programs. If nothing else, we should find an alternative term for that by the end of today's session, because it's what I don't like. But we have to address that gap where there is for them. And some of the larger mechanisms, depending on your age, you might know it as EMF, EMFF, or now EMFAF. We seem to add another letter every time we go through it. But the structural programs for the European Maritime, Aquaculture and Fisheries Fund, excellent as it is, it again can be too big or too slow for some people to access. And depending on how your member state applies it, you may or may not have access to it. For example, when I was on a panel awarding EMFF grants within the UK, we were looking at companies providing between 20 to 50% of funding themselves. That may well be the key barrier for those smaller businesses we mentioned earlier. For an innovation to work, it needs to be profitable, it needs to be industry driven, but with an eye to driving the industry. So in other words, it needs to be novel or developmental for it to work. And through our mirror platforms and our members, we know that that's out there. We often get approached directly to the office with people looking, wondering if we're a grant awarding body, so which unfortunately we're not in a position to do. Technology platforms don't give grants in that sense, but we're very much aware of the brain power and the desire and the inspiration that's out there. And I'm sure we're all keen to learn today how those barriers can be taken away and what thoughts we have. There are many things we're involved in looking at smart what we can do as a technology platform. We're looking at smart specialization platforms within the blue economy, regional collaboration, the new financial instruments we've been talking about, the strategic guidelines and the impact and rolling out of those guidelines, linked to a companion communication that came out of the European Commission earlier this spring on the blue economy and contextualizing aquaculture within wider blue growth in Europe. And we look forward as a platform to driving forward those initiations as well as such actions as BlueInvest. So I commend the session today. Thank you again for the invitation. And in all senses, let's look to a profitable day and see what we can derive from it. Thank you.
Okay, just to follow the presentation of David, thank you very much. I'm very honored to present to you Olivier Rebaud, that I'm very honored to have here today in Funchal. He's Managing Director at Swan Capital Partners. He has more than 20 years of experience in private equity investments in France and internationally. He's currently co-manager of the Swan Blue Ocean strategy, which invests in systematic innovations to regenerate ocean health and contribute to achieve some of the goals of this strategy. He's an active investor in innovative blue technologies and sustainable solutions for the ocean economy, as well as a key contributor to the Blue Investment Club of Investors. So he's a good follower of David Problems. Olivier holds an executive MBA from INSEAD Great Business School and a degree from AgroParisTech, leading French University for Life Science, Agronomy, and Food and Drink Industry. So we are really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. So hello to all of you. I'm very happy to be here. And so as Ana Luisa has introduced, Swan Capital Partners launched Blue Ocean, a fund dedicated to the regeneration of ocean health. And we do that through investing in innovations. And those innovations that we're looking at are innovations that are already at the level where the technology is proven and the market traction is demonstrated. So this, I just emphasize this following David to say that we are somewhere around the valley of death, but of course we need to have all this done, I mean the technology to be proven before we can come in. The way we designed the fund is to be able to deliver both systemic impact for ocean regeneration and financial performance. And we really need to deliver both, and I will explain why. So first, impact. Why is it important for us? It's very important because, as you probably all know, ocean is key for our planet. It's key because that's more than half the oxygen we breathe. That's delivers food for so many people, 3.2 billion people usually are said to depend on ocean. It's also key for the climate control. So the ocean, without an ocean in good health, there's no control on the climate, and the climate change will be worse. So I also wanted to emphasize, because today we are talking about aquaculture, for people that are doing aquaculture in open ocean, it's also key to have an ocean in good health, because otherwise, if you start to have pollutants, microplastics, heavy metals in the water, then people will stop buying anything that comes from the sea. So that's why we're really focusing on the health of the ocean as a key metric and a key target for our strategy. And why do we need financial performance? So that's for two things. First is, if we invest in some innovations that do not make profits and cannot grow, then the impact will always stay limited. And we don't want that impact to stay limited. We want the companies to be profitable enough to grow, to become large companies, so that the impact they bring will become systemic and global. And the second reason is because we depend on private financing, and private investors, they're looking for returns. So if we want to attract financing for our strategy, we need to prove that we can make profit out of it. So now coming on the more precisely on what we are doing. Today, if we look at the threats to the ocean, there are three main threats. So one is climate change. That's really a big threat, and we cannot solve it only with what we do with the ocean, but that's really a key threat to the ocean. We have the pollutions. So this can be pollutions from plastic, which is more and more well known. That can be also pollution from agricultural runoffs. That can be sound pollution, which is less known, but also a big pollution for the ocean. And so we are also looking at fighting all those type of pollutions. And the third threat, main threat to the ocean, that's over-exploitation, and in particular, overfishing. And today we started to know, and indeed the figures by the FAO is that 93% of the fish stocks are whether overfished or at the maximum level of fishing possibility. So that means that we are really on the brink of reducing tremendously the quantity of fish that will be alive in the ocean. So we need to act against this. If I go very quickly on the different things and still put more time on aquaculture. But in terms of our strategy, when we're looking at solutions to climate change, we're looking at marine solutions to climate change. So that's mainly marine renewable energies and green shipping. So how to decarbonize maritime transport. For pollution, basically, I said it, that's around plastic, that's around agricultural runoffs, that's around sound pollution in the ocean. When we're talking about plastic and agricultural runoffs, that means that we're working on land, because we need to prevent pollution from originating from the land and arrive in the ocean. Once it's in the ocean, that's too late. We've never found any way to remove that pollution from the ocean in a profitable way. And now taking more time on the overfishing threats. So this will include in our strategy ways to basically have people eat something else than seafood. So we are looking at plant-based and cell-based seafoods as a way to reduce the pressure on fishing. We are looking on ocean data, so how to get more data to understand better how the ocean, the states of the wild stocks, what's happening in the ocean. So, for example, we've invested in a company that developed a technology with satellites so that we can spot fishes that are doing illegal activities and turning off their AIS. And we also are looking for solutions to help fisheries become more sustainable. So that will include, for example, helping fisheries to reduce the loss of fishing gears or reduce the bycatch. And for aquaculture, this is something, and Lorella just mentioned that sometimes aquacultures get a bad image. So sometimes we get some pushback when we say that we're investing in aquaculture as well as a way to reduce the impact of overfishing. But we really think, and as I mentioned, 93% of fish stocks today are overfished or at the maximum of fishing levels. At the same time, world population is increasing, and also the level of wealth is increasing. So the demand is increasing for seafood, And as we cannot get more from white stocks, it has been proven for the last 40 years that aquaculture is the main source of seafood today, and that's the only source today that's able to fuel that growth. And we saw that since the beginning of the 80s, and now aquaculture represents almost half of the seafood we eat, whereas the fishes that come from which are white caught did not progress for the last 40 years. So we think that this will continue, and that's necessary so that we don't put too much pressure on the white stocks of fish. But then, of course, we need to work and help aquaculture become more sustainable. And on this, Hervé also helped me a lot because he put some emphasis on the key issues we need to solve. So one of them is aquaculture feed, which is not sustainable the way it's produced today. So that's one of the key areas we are focusing on, trying to find some alternatives to fish meal in particular to help aquaculture feed become more sustainable. We are also looking at aquaculture health. So a way to reduce the impact on the environment of all the health treatments for aquaculture. So that may include some new type of treatments that will degrade easier and will not create any pollution. That will also include some ways of reducing the leakage of those treatments into the ocean. And a third key area in terms of aquaculture, how we can transform aquaculture and help aquaculture become more sustainable. That's about what we call precision aquaculture, because today we see that in many ways the operations in aquaculture are not totally controlled. There are some things that we don't understand well enough, and that, for example, generates some operations which can create, for example, overfeeding, which generates pollution. And so we are also very much interested in new technologies that can help understand better how we operate aquaculture and then help reduce the negative environment of aquaculture on the environment. So yeah, this is very quickly on the strategy. If you have any question, I'd be very happy to answer. Now, talking about where we stand as a fund, so I'm not going to take too much time because I guess you're not investors. The only thing if you're startups, the only thing you're interested in to know is can we invest? So the answer is yes. So we're raising a fund of 120 million euros that is focusing mainly on Europe. We already raised a first close in July of 52 million euros, so we are already ready to invest, and we will announce within 10 days our first investment in a company which is doing precision aquaculture. So I cannot tell in advance, but keep tuned, and you will have the answer. And what else is important? Because Catherine asked me why did we join Swen to launch the strategy? Because we've been working on a strategy with my partner Christian Lim for 3 years, and we've decided to join Swen in May because to attract more money, and that's all about this. I mean, to be able to have money we can invest in startups, we first need to raise that money from institutional investors. We needed to be able to convince institutional investors, and to do that we needed a structure. So that's how we decided to join Swen, which is an asset manager with 6 billion euros under management. So that's already quite significant, and they have all the structures that are needed. And the why we've chosen them is because we have really a full alignment on values, which is very important. I mean, we really are impact focused. We want to invest for the regeneration of ocean, and we could not do that with an asset manager that was not aligned. And Swen Capital Partners is totally aligned on this. I mean, it's been created around sustainability, I mean ESG, so environmental, social, and governance criteria. And now the strategy of Swen is really to work on developing some impact strategies, and we are the second one. The first one being how to generate green biogas and green hydrogen, and so that's a full alignment. And I propose, I don't know if Catherine, you have anything else you want me to mention, or otherwise I leave the floor for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olivier. So we have not much time, I'm afraid, for questions. So I'd like to open the floor for questions. Anybody has a question for either Olivier, for David, or for Laurel? Okay, I can ask one before you, and you can think about the question you want to ask. So it's a question for you, Olivier. I was wondering, what is the kind of a typical company profile that you invest in? What do they look like?
Yes, thank you, Hervé. So typical is not always easy. So I just try to explain. So for us, usually that's a company that has not big revenues so far because we're really investing in startups. But as we said, it's a company that already did its R&D. So the product or the service it has developed is now fully proven. And the market traction is demonstrated. So how do we consider that market traction is demonstrated? That's when there might be some first commercial clients. That's a way to demonstrate the commercial traction. Another way to demonstrate commercial traction would be, for example, takeoff agreements or contracts with some big companies that say that as soon as you have the production lines, then we want to buy that level, that volume of product for that price. So that can be also a way for us to demonstrate that there's market traction. And so that's one way to answer the question. Another way would be in terms of size. So usually we're dealing with companies that have something between 10 and 20 employees, generally speaking. And yeah, if we talk about VC terms, venture capital terms, we are typically investing in Series A for those that are familiar with this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I can bring the microphone to you.
Hello, good morning. I'm from Portugal, south of Portugal, Algarve. And I would like to ask you which characteristics this small enterprise do need to have in terms of literacy, in terms of PhD people, in terms of technology to be able to have a possibility to go on the sustainable aquaculture investment.
So thank you for your question. Just you mentioned in terms of PhD, in terms of
yes, technology, which the type of because sometimes they are enterprises, but if they don't get the PhD or the masters, they cannot go on this level, on this type of research.
So
investment.
As far as typically, we don't have a specific requirements on any diploma of the team. What will we be looking at is, okay, how is the technology? Is the technology good? So it's true that often people with PhDs that come from research and really did a lot of research can come with better technologies that people that do not come from that background, but that's not a requirement. We also like to understand how this technology will be defendable once we've invested in, because if there is some patents, for example, that's useful. That's not always necessary. That can be trade secret as well. But we need a way to be reassured on the fact that it's not too easy to copy, and there cannot be anyone that sees it that would come back and put some money and then have exactly the same service or product. So we need to see how it is defendable. That can be with patents, that can be with trade secrets, that can be just because that's the first mover and we need to go fast and get data or get whatever. But we need to see how it is defendable.
Question in the front. Microphone is
I wanted to to say if for the development of offshore aquaculture is or not important to have some feeding platforms that can resist to all kinds of storms by submerging itself and the associated cages.
So if I understood your question is whether offshore submerged cages are robust enough, yeah, in order to withstand. No, okay, sorry. Could you just repeat the question?
I ask if to the development of offshore aquaculture is or not important to have some feeding platforms that can submerge and then resist to all kinds of storms.
David, do you want to have a go?
Thank you for the question. To answer slightly more broadly, offshore aquaculture is something that certainly our technology platform is considering. The technology used in offshore aquaculture has developed considerably from when we first started looking at it only a few years ago, and it was something from the world of science fiction when we were looking at some of the designs and blueprints for what were being done. We're now seeing those actually being demonstrated. From an investment perspective, I think anything that you could demonstrate to a potential investor, the technology you were using was reducing your exposure to risk. So in the event, I'm unfamiliar with the technology you were discussing, but were there to be a feed barge or any concept of the facility that could demonstrate successfully that it was less exposed to the threat posed by an extreme weather incident, by a storm or something like that, then I'm sure a potential investor would be interested in that. It's quite a specific to answer on one type. But yes, I think the place in a broader context for us, the place of new technological and equipment, infrastructure, hard technology development will certainly have a role to play in ensuring confidence in investing in the wider sector. In the same way we saw with moorings and anchorings, improved knowledge of siting and location of farms. Indeed, interesting to hear the concept in precision farming. As we see increases in precision farming, that will help de-risk the industry with the knowledge and the data and the shared data that can be used. So it's all part, I would say it's all part of de-risking the sector and improving knowledge and understanding of it.
Thank you. Does it answer your question? Yeah. Any other question? Yeah.
Thank you for the very interesting presentation. I am representing a consortium that's working in a project called Aquavita. We are trying to increase TRL level of low trophic species. And my role is developing business plans, well, not my role, but part of what we do in the work package. Therefore, this presentation is very important because we need to have lines of investment to these type of developments. And my question would be, how would you collaborate with this type of projects where we are trying to incorporate social and economic aspects to research, to make impact, to actually have an impact in these industries that are increasing their TRL? How can we collaborate? Is it a direct contact? Is it at what level would this be interesting for you to participate into developing these plans? Or what level of information would you need to consider these developments as interesting? You have exposed some things, but in our case, we are developing, for instance, macroalgae, which you were mentioning for green biofuels, and well, the low trophic aquaculture, which has a lot of opportunities for the industry. So yeah, my question, how to collaborate, how to get there?
So thank you very much for your question. So we we collaborate a lot with different incubators, accelerators, including BlueInvest. So that's also a role of BlueInvest. Why? Because for us, first, that's good to see in advance what are the technologies that are coming. So even if you mentioned TRL, so we would typically invest in TRL 7 or over. But of course, when we see that a new technology is at TRL 2, 3, 4, we know that someday it will come at the level that we're interested in, and it's good to know it beforehand. So for us, that's interesting. And then also we help those startups to understand what's outside in the market. We try to help them, give them connections, give them support, give them our views of what the market is going to. And so yeah, we do that a lot. So very happy to exchange just after and to see how we could organize this. That would be a pleasure.
Okay, in the seat we have here an online question to you, Olivier. Is the timeline to assess funding if there is alignment and interest and supporting at SME at seed round to prove concept? Is the timeline to assess funding if there is alignment and interest and supporting an SME at seed round to prove concept?
So seed round is a bit early for us. So the different investors are specialized on the investing value chain. And so typically seed round would be other type of investors that are really specifically working on seed round or pre-seed and helping companies doing the research efforts. And we would invest later on once this research is completed, and we go for commercialization of the product or the service. So our sweet spot is typically Series A, which is after the seed round. And I'm sorry to talk with VC terms for those that are not familiar with it.
So we still have time, okay, for one question? It's coming.
Yes, Daniel Brännström from Sweden, working with a company, Agtida. And we have been working with a case, and we got it the last week. For over 1 year, we have been working with it. And now, when we are going to build it next year, it's aquaponics farms. The Eurofounds are stopped, and we are in the valley of death. How are we going to work with that? Because the customer wants it next year, and we will do that. But if we are going to have any founds, we should wait maybe in Sweden, maybe 2 years. So I'm just putting it up because we are in the middle time period in Sweden, so we can't. We are going to invest 1.5 million euros, and maybe we could have 500 or 700,000 euros in Eurofounds for this, but if we really are going to get it, we should wait maybe 2 or 3 years. But the customer wants it now, so I'm just putting that up as a question. How are we working with the valley of death?
Okay, thank you for your question. We are already running out of time. Already we've been taking 10 more minutes, but I think you will have plenty of opportunity during the day to discuss further with the panelists, the presenters, and obviously there are new sessions coming. So if you have any other questions too, please use the coffee break, lunch, and
Thank you very much. And I'm going to answer your question as I introduce Vincent, because he is going to also be talking about funding opportunities and particularly European funding opportunities. But before that, because I really appreciate the time that this panel has given us today, I would like to say thank you very much, David, Lorella, Hervé, Olivier, and Luisa. Everyone, can we give them a big round of applause? Thank you very much for your time. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Vincent Favrel because he is going to talk about funding opportunities in Europe. But before I do that, what I would like to do, actually, I will switch mics. Thank you. Hello, yes. What I wanted to do was to answer some of the questions that we had on the chat as well. The slides are going to be made available to you. So if you have registered for this event in Converve, or you have given us your registration details, we will send you an email so that you can access the deck after this event. So we will make the presentation deck available. There was a question from Quadriga Aqua on whether they could present themselves to the BlueInvest platform. You are very welcome to contact our team. We have our email address, which here. And what you can do maybe is see if you are eligible for the project pipeline. Right now, the readiness assistance cycle has ended, but expect that it will be relaunched again, but next year. So you still have the option for the project pipeline. Otherwise, join the community, because if it is a high potential business with a very good product, there will always be an opportunity. And I just wanted to address the Valley of Death question. I think it's a very specific case, but it sounds like you already have a potential client. So maybe what we can do is we take up your case individually with the team, because we do have in our club of investors, we have a group of business angels and also pre-seed and seed who are in the club of investors. So it depends on what exactly you're offering with the clients, but we can try to see if we can match you with somebody. So get in touch with me after this session. So everybody, I'm just going to introduce Vincent because his time is also limited, and after that you can also come back to me with further questions. Vincent Favrel is head of unit for sustainable blue economy at CNEA, and that is the EU Green Deal agency for the European Commission. They were recently launched this year. He is going to talk to us about funding opportunities in the EU. So Vincent, I give the floor to you. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm sorry we're a bit delayed.
Thank you, Kathy, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this workshop and for introducing me as well. So you spare me some time of introduction. As you said, next slide, please. I'm working for the CNEA, the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. In CNEA, what we are doing, we are managing a number of programs. First of all, beside the European Maritime Fishery and Aquaculture Fund that we are indeed managing in my unit. As you can see on this slide, we have 7 of those programs, the most known like Horizon Europe or LIFE, but also some new ones like Innovation Fund or the Just Transition Mechanism, in addition to Connecting Europe facility. Next slide, please. So this, as you said, is the European Green Deal Agency. So it gives us a lot of, it's a very interesting portfolio. So we are close to many interesting programs. It gives us also the opportunity to develop synergies with those programs. In this next slide, when we speak of Europe, come back to on the European Maritime Fishery and Aquaculture Fund. Just to clarify what my unit is doing, what I'm dealing with is the direct management part of the MFAF, or previously the EMFF, or that probably the audience is more familiar with. as the direct management part is the part that is directly managed by the Commission. So where we see specific needs to manage directly, it's a lot of policy support actions, but we have there a small budget that we are investing in the blue economy, in the successive blue economy calls that we have been funding since 2016. So the rest and the big chunk of the shared management is of the MFAF is obviously the shared management that is managed, implemented by the member states and the regions directly. The whole objective of this program is obviously to support the EU Common Fishery Policy, the EU Maritime Policy, and the Sustainable Blue Economy that was now revamped through the dedicated communication earlier this year, and finally the EU Agenda for International Ocean Governance. Next slide, please. We have been funding, as I just said, a number of blue economy projects, and the fund have been investing progressively in SMEs, in close to market projects, as I say, in the blue economy window dedicated call that was targeting specifically SMEs and requiring also a strong commitment from investors. It has been culminating with the support to the BlueInvest platform, so that is organizing the workshop today, and the many services that was just recalled by Cathy. In terms of innovative projects, I just would like to mention a few examples that are shown here on the slide, specifically related to aquaculture, where those projects that are proposing innovative solution with strong commercial potential. And first, the Demo Blue Smart Feed project, which is validating a smart feeding control system to reduce feed waste in offshore fish farming, and is improving the economic and environmental performance. The second project, Open Mode, has developed floating modules with integrated remote monitoring technologies for mussel farming in open water. So it's a bit linked to the idea that was raised by the audience about submersible platform for aquaculture. It demonstrated their potential to boost the EU shellfish sector as low trophic form of aquaculture and bring positive environmental benefits. The Sea Star project is a quite innovative project as well. It demonstrated the integration of Internet of Underwater Things technologies into miniaturized wearable sensors on fish, which the resulting system allows farmers for the first time to monitor the health of each fish remotely in real time and to gather relevant data for accurate risk assessment and forecasting. Very interesting technology. And finally, Csm Ai is a project that equips an underwater autonomous vehicle with artificial intelligence for easier, more accurate underwater inspections of aquaculture nets, as well as a range of other underwater infrastructure used by other sectors. So you see the range of projects that we've been funding related to aquaculture. Next slide, please. But as you surely know, and it was already discussed by the panelists, grants are not sufficient to lead solutions and innovative solutions to the market, and it's why the fund has been funding the BlueInvest platform that I mentioned earlier. I'm not going through again the different services that are proposed, and it shows that indeed the MFF, the MFAF actions can complement one another to support business at different stages. It's a bit the key message also of the recent development in what we are doing in order to boost the development and boost innovation and investment. With this idea, next slide, please. I would like to stress what is there in terms of access to finance and technical assistance. In addition to the platform itself and the grants and the readiness mechanism, we have the pilot BlueInvest fund was set up in 2020 to deploy up to 75 million euros funding to venture capital funds that combines the funding with their own capital to make equity investment into sustainable blue economy projects. So there are a number of funds that were selected to that end. This approach to leverage private investment continues under the MFAF in order to be able to support more projects of those with bigger investment needs. What is planned for the new programming period is to have some 20 million euro of MFAF funds to be used in blending operations under the InvestEU program. So there's not yet a lot of information about that, but soon you will probably be made aware of this through the BlueInvest platform. This instrument will be managed by the European Investment Fund to create a financial instrument capable of maximizing funding for innovative and sustainable blue businesses, including in aquaculture. And as it was already mentioned by Lorea in her introduction, the MFAF will also soon launch a call for tenders for an assistance mechanism for aquaculture that will provide technical assistance for member states and industry from spring 2022, which is soon, and this is providing the technical assistance for those interested. But as I said before, having the chance to, next slide please, having the chance to work in SMEs, in this agency for the European Green Deal, we have proximity also to other funding opportunities, and LIFE is definitely one of them. And I would like to take the opportunity to mention there a topic that is relevant for EMFF project as well. It is about the innovative solution to reduce pressure of human activities on the marine environment. Also to mention, and it was also already said by Kathy, that they will be soon have in Ecomondo a dedicated thematic workshop of BlueInvest, where three projects will be featured. 2 MFF projects, biogas project developing bio-based ropes for aquaculture, the Easy Feed project developing organic feed from aquaponics, and a live project will also be present on this occasion, which produces insect protein from biowaste as a sustainable alternative to fish and soy meal feed. So other innovative and very interesting projects to be presented there. Now, going beyond LIFE, and I would like also to mention Horizon Europe, of course. This is a key funding tool for research and innovation, with a lot of money invested as of this year for the coming period. And last week, as it was already mentioned, was launched 5 strategic missions under Horizon Europe, including the mission on healthy oceans, seas, coastal and inland waters, recognizing protection and restoration of ocean as one of the biggest challenges we face today. This mission has some specific targets. It's a very ambitious mission. And the targets are, among others, by 2030, aiming at decarbonization of the full decarbonization of the blue economy sectors, including developing zero carbon and low impact aquaculture and promoting circular low carbon multi-purpose use of marine and water space. Apart from that, it's also aimed at restoring biodiversity and eliminating pollution from the sea. So, as I said, quite ambitious with putting together not only research, innovation, but also investment. In the current calls that I would like to mention from Horizon Europe in this thematic cluster dealing with marine environment, I can just mention 3 calls that are open, but the deadline is today. Organic on 3 topics: organic farming and organic aquaculture, unlocking the potential of algae, sea to fork transparency, and consumer engagement. So it may be short if you're just made aware of these opportunities, but it is there at the moment. Otherwise, coming to be published soon on the 28th of October in another call for with among others 3 topics that may be of interest for you. One being on integrated solutions combining aquaculture, biodiversity preservation, biotechnology, and other uses. Another one on biosecurity, hygiene, diseases prevention, and animal welfare in aquaculture. And finally, one on innovative food from marine and freshwater ecosystem. Also on the 28th of October, there will be a call open for proposal to establish a European partnership for climate neutral, sustainable and productive blue economy. When we speak of partnership, we speak of a tool, an instrument to foster close cooperation and pooling resources between public maritime funding organization and ministries and the private sector, that they will be launching a dedicated call for research, innovation and collaborative actions. Now, if we look at the non-sector specific opportunities, I would like also to say this opportunity, although I'm not personally directly involved in those, but I think it's these are relevant opportunities as well, and that we may already be aware of. So the EIC, so the European Innovation Council Accelerator, is definitely and provides a very interesting tool to support startups and SMEs through grant funding or investments. Very competitive, I have to say, but interesting. You can apply at any time to open calls for breakthrough innovations in any field of technology, or for challenge funding in the categories of either digital or health technology or Green Deal innovations for the economic recovery. These are the main priorities. Also, the new single market program, which is the successor of the COSME program, for those who know it, which is dedicated to SME support, but also provides financial support in the form of debt and equity financing that will be available under the SME window of the InvestEU fund. So something similar to the blending facility I mentioned earlier. Another new instrument for 21-27 is the Interregional Innovation Investment under the European Regional Development Fund, which is also brand new. It will support partnerships and major innovation projects across regions with shared areas of specialization to help them accelerate market uptake and scale up of innovative solutions. As well as to develop a portfolio of investment projects. There is an information day organized on the 19th of October for those who are interested by this opportunity. And for more information, I would like to refer, if you move to the next slide, on different links to be informed about those opportunities offered managed by CNEA itself, but also by other executive agencies, like I mentioned, the ISMEA, but also the Research Executive Agency, which is managing most of the Horizon Europe marine-related goals. Of course, the BlueInvest, which is the main entry point to most EMFA-funded activities and the coming funds I mentioned. And of course, for practical to apply and to get to know the details on each goals, there is this funding and tender portal where you can search and find the right instrument for your need. In terms of, it's essentially a grant, I have to say, but it's the main entry point for funding opportunities. No, I hope I sparked the interest of all of you, on those of you who are there with some innovative ideas, and invite you then to participate actively, and wish you good luck anyway. I'm available now to answer questions from the audience.
That is great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vincent. I don't know if you noticed, but I certainly have, because I'm in the room. So the cameras really went out when you were showing the slide on the projects, and then when you were also showing the slide on the links and the program. So I hope you do expect that there will be a wave of interest. And this is something that we really also want to encourage. We find in our experience, having run this platform, that there are a lot of really good EU programs and mechanisms that are just not as well known. And they are there providing both technical assistance and also access to opportunities. And as I wait for, raise your hand if any of you have questions for Vincent, because then we're going to take a few minutes just to take questions before we end. I see three questions. So first the gentleman towards the back, and then the gentleman before him, and then the gentleman in the front row.
Thank you very much. And thank you especially, Vincent, for this presentation and this insight about what, from my perception, what you want to change and to improve about the way you want to flow the fundings into the industry. Stefan Meyer, my name. I'm from Germany. I have some share of experience in trying to help SMEs to, for example, apply for EMFF funding programs on a very national, regional, member state level. And there are challenges, we know that, and that's always a very individual thing on the member state level, how they make the money flow. My question to you, Vincent, would be, because you were explaining that a little bit, but you didn't go into much detail, how do you want to make sure that, for example, technical assistance measures do bridge the gap to the SMEs? So as you were just referring to, some part of it is that they're not very well known. To my perception is also that they're not fulfilling really the needs of an SME. For example, like timeliness, when call deadlines, application deadlines for the mere investment programs are a challenge, and the paperwork, handling the paperwork. Can you maybe give some examples or how you want to overcome these rather practical bottlenecks to enable these funds for SMEs especially?
Well, I'm not sure I can, if I understand correctly, your question is more about the how to, more the administrative assistance, or the, so to speak, for SMEs to facilitate their participation in such goals. As EMFF, we don't have a dedicated help or support. We're obviously offering all our support as agency to make sure that things are clear and fit to the SME reality. We know that it's difficult for SME to participate in new programs, especially if you're a newcomer. There is a lot of, we try to simplify as much as possible our application tool. There is, some of you who have been following may notice an evolution. We went from paperwork, paper submission to fully electronic, and we tried also to what is required in terms of documentation. But there is a reality that EU programs are quite difficult from an administrative point of view, and you need also to be able to provide all the evidence in terms of good financial management. It is where sometimes SMEs are struggling. So on that aspect, apart from the effort that we are doing internally to facilitate the process, to simplify the rules, we count also on the network of NCP, so national contact points, although we don't have a dedicated one for EMFF, but we know for Horizon they have this network. And when I was speaking about as technical assistant, I was more referring to how to level up the skills, the competencies to increase the readiness of projects of SMEs to present their ideas in front of investors, so to facilitate that process, because we know the gap between developing a good idea, and the grants are essentially there to bring new ideas from the idea to the pilot or the demonstration phase. But then what is coming next, generally SMEs or innovators are not prepared to that, and it's where BlueInvest is intervene. It's really to facilitate this process, and on the hand to work on the investor side to de-risk or bring some knowledge. Sometimes we had some studies showing that there is a lack of in-depth knowledge of the opportunities of the sector and perception also of risk. So we try to work on that side as well. So I'm not sure I fully answered your question, Stefan, but it's what I can say at the moment.
Thank you. We have two other questions, Vincent, so maybe we take those up first.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm Ola Öberg from Sweden, representing SMEs in aquaculture. My question here is about the MFAF and all these investments that you are actually showing a very nice overview of here. It's tax money that is put out to drive the sustainable aquaculture development, and then and that's mainly for production, sustainable production. But I as an SME, you always have to sell your product, and you have your consumers, the customers, and then I look to which customers are using tax money to pay their to pay the products. It's the public procuration, and when I compare the sustainability level of the products in average sold for European blue food consumption, and if you compare the public procuration, it's lower. So they are actually hampering the development of sustainable production by using tax money to buy the lower end of the sustainability products. And I wonder if you have thought about this and how to address so that more of the part of the total tax money can go to develop the sustainable part, because it's for a producer, you very much more like to have an order to deliver on than to have funding to build your production bigger or more sustainable. You can have an so thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, we still have Lorella de la Cruz in the room, and I think she's in a good position. Vincent, if you don't mind, maybe Lorella can answer the question. Yeah, the mic.
Thank you, Ola, for that question. I think I would like to react to it. I know there is this idea, this idea to explore about using public procurement, for example, for food in hospitals, public schools, etc., universities. Link that procurement to sustainable food, and I think that's what you were referring to. Just to mention that this is something that is being considered in the broader policy initiative on sustainable food that is Farm to Fork. There's a reference to procurement in that respect. So just to mention that.
Thank you, Lorella. I think we have one other question for Vincent, because he also has a bit limited time, and I thank you, Vincent, for already extending a little bit. So we have time for that one more question. I think it was here in front.
Thank you. My name is Georg Herrige, and I'm representing Swifish, a Swiss company. Is there access to funding also for joint ventures between companies in the EU and outside the EU, just as Great Britain, Norway, or Switzerland?
I can not answer for all the funds, so it's not excluded. I have to say you have to look at the specific conditions for each and every calls for proposal. So it's not automatic, and definitely not under Horizon Europe to fund a non-EU participant. In the MFF days, this opening when you consider useful, necessary for the project, but for investment financing, this I cannot really answer. It's depends on each venture capital and the specific conditions. I don't think there's a there's maybe other panelists are better placed to answer that aspect. But for EU grant funding, it depends. It's not the general rule, but there are some possibilities.
Yes, maybe Vincent, I can complement your answer because we are seeing new co-investment platforms being developed under InvestEU. They have not yet been launched, but the mechanisms that we are using to fund different types of business partnerships are being re-engineered in order to accommodate both the sustainability component, the impact component, and the economic component. So this is, I'm sorry, it's a very generic answer because right now we are not able to provide more details because these mechanisms are still to be launched. However, there are existing EU programs that I can mention, not specific to aquaculture, but which provide technical assistance to support joint ventures. So one such project, for example, is under the European External Action Service. It's called the Low Carbon Business Action in the Americas. So this is under the DG DG Grow, which supports the development and the internationalization of small and medium-sized enterprises. For now, these mechanisms are very much focused on EU SMEs and their growth, but they also are linked to third countries and partner countries. So there are, I think, as Vincent said, there are existing mechanisms, and it's a specificity that needs to be, I think, checked against the existing programs that there are. But I mean, I think it's a good question. It's just also a bit of a complex one, depending on exactly what your situation is. So yes, so I think that is it. It's a wrap, everybody. We're going to come back this afternoon. So you have a networking lunch right now. And then we will have a session this afternoon with a training and also a pitch session and the investor spotlight. We are bringing to the stage 4 new funds specific to aquaculture, so you should meet them. Please give us your feedback. If you are going to be leaving after this session, please complete the feedback form. Give us your input about this event. Would have been good to hear more from all of you, but because we're also partly virtual, the time has been really a bit limited. But thank you so much for being here, for your participation, and hopefully see you after lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Bye.
Thank you, Vincent. Hey, I think we are going to start. If you are back for this session, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed lunch and I hope you were able to network with each other. It's really good to be in a space where people can see each other and actually communicate, face to face in the same location. If you're not in the room, I hope you were able to book one-to-one meetings and have virtual calls with each other. I mean, the platform is a really good, it's a really good mechanism for people to still be able to meet, even if they're not in the same place. If you haven't registered for this event, you're very welcome to check out the platform. And so you have the QR code on the screen here. You can scan it with your phone to be able to get into Converve. If you were here this morning, I hope you enjoyed the morning session. Please give us your feedback because this is what we really need and use to continue to improve the program. So for this afternoon, I'm actually very delighted and also honored to have with us again Mauro Randone. He's actually the Sustainable Blue Economy Program Coordinator for the Mediterranean Marine Initiative for WWF. I think all of us know what WWF is, but Mauro can also, say a few words on that. I just wanted to say that he has been a very active contributor and one of our key sources of information when it has come to the principles for sustainable financing. The WWF has been at the forefront of developing these principles, working with investors, with banks, and also with policymakers. So he is here today to talk to us about integrating sustainable financial principles into aquaculture-related investments. And so, Mauro, welcome. I just wanted to mention that we have people who are logged in watching virtually. There are about 90 people who registered, and from this morning's session, we had another about 50 people in the room with me today who are trickling in, and I don't know if some of them are online, but the split of the participation, Mauro, is that about a third of the people who joined us have been investors and funds. A third of them are companies and entrepreneurs, and a third of them are what we call stakeholders. And I think you're quite familiar now. You've met a lot of our BlueInvest stakeholders. So Mario, I give you the floor. Welcome, and let's hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. Can you hear me properly, first of all? That's the most important thing.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So good afternoon. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I have attended numerous BlueInvest events in the past, and I'm really sorry not to be able to be there today with you. So I work for WWF. I think there's no need to introduce WWF. In my case, I work for the Mediterranean program. I'm currently acting director of the Mediterranean Marine Initiative, and I work also as a coordinator of the Sustainable Blue Economy program for the region. I have two hats, as many people have right now. Very sorry again not to be able to be there. It would have been nice to network, but you know, we'll have other chance. So what I wanted to do today is to introduce to you the work that WWF and partners are doing to essentially integrate sustainable finance principles into the blue economy investments. With a specific focus on aquaculture as requested. We do not have a lot of time today, so what I'll do, I'll give you an overview. And of course, you're very welcome to ask questions at the end or get in touch afterwards if you wish. There will be, my email will be at the end of the presentation, so feel free to contact me directly. So I'm going to practice on how to change the slides. Okay, perfect. You should be able to see my next slide right now. So first of all, when talking about financing the sustainable blue economy, it's important to essentially state the fundamentals. So the ocean economy has huge value, which WWF estimated in partnership with BCG in 2015. To be approximately 24 trillion US dollars in total assets, releasing benefits for up to 2.5 trillion per year US dollars, and presenting therefore a huge opportunity economically speaking. One second, the slides should be changing. Okay, on the other hand, it's clear that many of the indicators of ocean health are trending in the wrong direction as a result of mismanagement and overexploitation of oceans' natural resources. So the situation is made worse by climate change, as the recent IPCC report illustrates. So the question here is, how can ambitions for social and economic resilience be achieved when we're essentially eroding the natural capital and the resource and the assets that the economy depends on? If we are to ensure the transition and to underpin the delivery of the Sustainable Development Goals, we should be focusing the attention on minimizing risks and building the resilience of the ocean societies and economies that depend on it, and particularly in the face of climate change, as I already mentioned. We have a vision of a sustainable blue economy that, in our view, should first of all provide the social and economic benefits for current and future generations, then restore and protect and maintain diverse and productive and resilient marine ecosystems, and to be based on clean technology, renewable energy, and circular material flows. Now, to get there, we need a systemic shift, and we need to redirect mainstream finance to more sustainable development pathways. Now, very often the problem is, especially for us, we are in touch with various financial institutions, and up to a few years ago, the big question was, okay, show us projects, show us projects that we can invest into, give us the examples of what you mean when you define a sustainable blue economy. It's still a term which remains quite vague. So the problem was that until recently, the very little guidance was available specific to oceans in particular. So the with this in mind, in WWF with the European Investment Bank, the European Commission, and the Prince of Wales International Sustainability Unit, developed essentially a sustainable blue economy finance, a set of sustainable blue economy finance principles. These principles were launched at our Ocean Conference in Bali in October 2018. What they aim to do is to provide essentially the first global frameworks to guide investment sort of towards the most sustainable development pathway. Now, this is not obviously a comprehensive framework in terms of wasn't granular at that stage. They were quite high-level principles. But at the same time, you know, the idea was to align them with SDGs and to really complement existing frameworks like the Equator Principles or the Principles for Responsible Banking. So these principles now represent the sort of guiding framework of UNEP-FI's Sustainable Blue Economy Finance Initiative. This initiative has over 40 signatories right now that include public and private sector partners and include World Bank, for example, EBRD, and I think among the members there is also BNP Paribas, for instance. One second, changing slides. You should be able to see it now. Okay, so essentially building on the sustainable blue economy finance principles through the leadership of UNEP-FI and in partnership with us at WWF, we developed the more granular guidance that what we're going to talk about today. The idea is to really develop granular guidance that goes into the detail of the various sectors to support the implementation of the sustainable blue economy finance principles. The guidance is called Turning the Tide, How to Finance a Sustainable Ocean Recovery. And it includes 5 sectors right now of the blue economy. Is divided into a narrative report and a technical annex. The overall goal is to have actionable and science-based recommendations and targeting, for example, banks, investors, insurers, to sort of enable them to make financial decisions that sort of drive capital towards a sustainable blue economy. Why 5 sectors? Well, the idea was to start with these 5 sectors. Now there's an ongoing process to enlarge the list. But these were the 5 sectors that were chosen based on their exposure to and impact on marine ecosystems health. And included seafood, so both fisheries and aquaculture, then coastal and marine tourism, shipping, ports, and marine renewable energy. So at the beginning of this exercise of the development of this report, we carried out a survey that included over 80 financial institutions, including banks, investors, and insurers. When we basically analyzed the results, it became very clear that there is a huge interest in sustainable blue economy and in aligning sort of capital flows and ocean health But at the same time, the majority of the financial institutions indicated that they are really at the beginning of the journey with regards to integrating sustainability considerations into blue economy sector. So, you know, it's a work in progress essentially, and this is just to give you an idea of the broad range of partners involved in the initiative, and that supported also the development of the guidance. So you can see both banks, but also other NGOs, investors, and insurance companies. So a little bit about the methodology of the guidance. I think it's important to share some information on how we got to the final result. So the guidance was created following a bottom-up approach. So we had a discovery phase at the beginning that included essentially an extensive literature review and expert interviews. It was based on the latest science, and it identified the sector's impact on environment and society. A master list of pressures and impacts was then developed for each of the sectors, and it was mapped against the current and potential risks to financial institutions. And essentially the materiality of these risks was also assessed. So from the key pressures, impacts, and risks, the criteria were then created, and that's essentially the guidance in a nutshell. So here's a very quick summary of the common impacts on environment and society that include, for instance, the degradation of ecosystems, loss of biodiversity, or, for instance, violation of human rights. In the narrative report, that there are basically a description of each impact, and that there are clear examples on where they materialize in practice. These were all information that we thought were particularly valuable for investors. So the impacts lead to material risks for businesses, and therefore to financial institutions across these 5 risk categories. So we have physical risks, operational risks, market risks, regulatory risks, and reputational risks. When we'll go into the specific guidance and then the one for aquaculture, you will understand better how these are sort of explained in practice and illustrated in the guidance. There are, for example, instances where risks fall into various categories. For example, a changing regulation that you see here in regulatory risk may then present operational risks. So basically, in this case, only the operational, source risk is included. So now, maybe we'll go into detail about the aquaculture sector. I don't think there is a need to talk about the sector in this context. I think we all know very well that the aquaculture sector is expanding. It has been expanding extremely rapidly. It's projected to expand in a similar trend in the future, and therefore perhaps in some cases a little bit less than expected right now, but it remains a sector that is getting a lot of attention from both policymakers and also investors. At the same time, there are challenges that that hinder the development of the sector. The sector is often perceived as bringing major environmental impacts and conflicts, for example, with tourism, but also fisheries and other sectors. And these are just some examples that we collected from various websites. But this is just to understand that the idea and the public perception is not always very welcoming. In fact, some let's say environmental impacts and although the sustainability of the sector has improved in many ways in recent years, some impacts are there, and they're being currently targeted, I think, from the majority of the actors within the businesses. But some impacts are there, particularly with some production techniques. Here is a table that we developed a few years back in this European Union funded project. The impacts range from increased turbidity, organic load, use of antibiotics, unsustainable fish meals. These are things where research and innovation are still working towards finding solutions, but at the same time, progress is being made. So getting into the guidance. So the guidance looks at these pressures that I just mentioned. It identifies the impacts and the associated risks. For instance, when we look at pollution and water contamination, the resulting impact can be seen on biodiversity, geochemical, biological cycles, for example, and this in turn creates reputational, regulatory, and market risks. So that was the idea, to being able to really link each one of these pressures to key impacts and key risks. Now, I apologize. I apologize for this. This is probably the most important slide of the presentation, but it was very difficult to summarize it, and I know that it's very small. I can describe it a little bit better, and then of course I invite you to go and see the actual document where you'll find this information. Today in 20 minutes it was very difficult to give you more information. So essentially, the Excel file that is associated to the guidance, to the narrative report, provides this detailed information. So very granular recommendations on how to deal with these impacts as an investor, essentially. What are the key actions that financial institutions should or could take to mitigate them, whether through, for example, enhanced due diligence, outlining key expectations for companies through lending policies, or designing financial products that target opportunities for transitioning these sectors towards a sustainable blue economy, so towards greening, these some of these issues that we list here. If you look at the report, well, first, I guess I can summarize in two key aspects for you today. So the first one is that the guidelines, first of all, outlines the activities and investments that should be avoided. So in red, in here on this table, you have clear recommendations on where basically you should not invest. And these are activities that are known to be harmful to the ocean economy. So activities that are illegal very often. So we're talking about really extreme cases. Then you have, other activities that require additional oversight and transition pathways, and these are highlighted in yellow. And in here you have recommendations on how to get to the situation, to get to the green, essentially, to get to the green light for investments. And in green, of course, you have the ones that that you can go for, essentially. So these clear actions are then followed by recommendations. You'll see very detailed about recommendations about what financial actors could require and what could they encourage, for example, companies to do to mitigate these risks and impact. So the second thing to highlight is that essentially these recommendations, and you'll see for each one of them, it clearly specifies linkages to the Sustainable Blue Economy finance principles and to the Sustainable Development Goals. This is particular importance for financial institutions, for basically to know how they're contributing to these global frameworks. So, it's something that you can use also and can be proved to be very useful for your activities and something that you can use for your own strategies, let's say. The guidance can be used for public sector financing and sort of help policymakers to outline frameworks that create a sort of level playing field for financial institutions and to finance a sustainable blue economy. So some broad recommendations and sort of thoughts on the guidance. First, it's the first of its kind. So we know that for example, the EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy is taking place right now, is being developed for climate related issues, is being developed for ocean related sort of sectors, but for example, we don't have yet a finance taxonomy for aquaculture. So it's going to be in the next development stages. So in this case, we are really breaking new ground. It's the first time that a group of organizations has addressed these issues and provided these kind of recommendations. Obviously, we wanted to make it geographically universal and applicable to banks, investors, and insurers. It's the level of detail is reflected in this. Obviously, it needed to be addressed to a broad range of users. We wanted to make it user friendly. And the feedback that we got, for example, from the Sustainable Seafood Finance Working Group was very positive. It was useful to, for example, for setting impact frameworks and for identifying gap analysis and to create coherence in the market as well. Obviously, we'll see in time how it will be perceived and used, but we hope that it's going to be definitely useful. Perhaps it's also worth clarifying that the guidance does not offer sort of investment advice. It's not that's not the purpose. And it doesn't sort of replace existing requirements for due diligence. The purpose is a little bit different, and sometimes there's a misunderstanding of this. So just some examples of that are included in the report where companies and investors and insurers that include also the aquaculture sector with Rabobank and the collaboration with WWF in Chile on salmon farming. Something that you can of course look up it's the idea is to really illustrate these examples, collect them, and create this critical mass of public and private sector organizations aligning around these key criteria, and to start really shifting financing of sustainable blue economy from niche to mainstream, let's say. I have one last slide, and then probably we'll have a few minutes for questions. I wanted to show this this table because I think it's quite representative on how much blue finance is really gaining traction and momentum with many sort of government, civil society organizations, and financial institutions interested in sort of dipping their toes into the water. So there are now many groups and platforms forming to address both the knowledge and capacity gaps for matching the sort of the capital with the sustainable blue economy projects, as well as funding platforms that aim to foster the creativity and project development. So in this figure, you have some of the major ones, the major initiatives, and you can get some more information on each one of them. So if you haven't done so yet, have a look at it. It's included in the report and can definitely be useful about understanding the full landscape of initiative globally. I think I'll stop here. I'll leave a few minutes for questions. I try to really summarize everything in a nutshell. And yeah, as I said, apologize for not being there, but feel free to contact me. Here is my email. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauro, and thank you for also keeping so well the time. I'm going to give our audience a little bit of time just to digest what you've said. But if anyone has any questions in the room, just raise your hand, and my colleague Luisa will come to you with a microphone. Maura, I also wanted to say that we have in the call, because they're going to be spotlighted in the next session, we have 3 investors in the room with us. We have Bram, Carlos, and Jacques. And I think that I think your session is also quite interesting because it is intended to be a guide for investors and for corporates in how or what they should be investing in to ensure kind of sustainability. So maybe, Maura, what I can do is maybe ask you a question. You know, what do you find still really needs to be done for this guidance to become universally, I think, accepted and also implemented, you know, as an investment framework for decision making?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, well, this is voluntary guidance. This is a voluntary framework, let's say. So everything is, for example, in Europe and globally, the taxonomies are being developed for sustainable finance, and I think that is going to be the moment in which let's say, when the taxonomies are going to be adopted, that's where we're going to see I think the major impact. Of course, this work helps to really feed into also that taxonomy process and provide an initial sort of framework that financial institutions can have to sort of guide their investment decisions. What needs to be done specifically, in my opinion, of course, it will need to be enlarged to other sectors. Right now, we only have 5 for the level of granularity, and that's one of the issues. Although you know, within aquaculture, you have various subsectors. You have seaweed farming. You have, of course, shellfish. You have fish. So further guidance need to be developed and adapted for these specific subsectors. That's definitely one of the main issues. In this case, we try to develop recommendations that are really universal, that really apply to all these categories. But obviously, the more granular you get, the more useful it is, especially for the financial institutions that are going to invest in these specific sectors. The feedback was extremely positive from all the financial institutions that we spoke to. Finally, we had an answer, you know, on this request for providing broad guidance. So I think it's the first step, and I think it will be followed by even more granular recommendations, and then potentially, for example, adaptations to regional context. We know that, for example, the Mediterranean in Europe has specific characteristics, and the guidance there, you know, it's going to be interpreted in a little bit of a different way and needs to be adapted to that context. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you, Maura. What I hear is that it really needs engagement because it is something that has to be signed up to. And for that engagement to happen, the feedback, or at least the tool, the framework, has to be customized and has to take into account the specificities of the different regions, and also I think that the different models, the supply chains that we're looking at. So what I'm hearing is people should engage with this. So for those of you in the room, we're going to provide you with the links. We're also going to provide you with the deck so you can engage, you know, with this tool, with this framework. It's very interesting for businesses as well to know, because if it is going to impact in investment decision making, it will eventually impact on how you conduct your operation. So thank you very much, Mauro. It's very, very useful as always to have you in the room. I would like to introduce everybody now to the 3 investors who are going to be spotlighted. They're going to present their funds to you, and they're going to give you a chance to ask them questions. And they are actually 3 investors who are very active in the blue economy. We've got in the room with us Blue Pioneers, NBI investors of Shift Invest, and also TELUS Impact. I think a couple of them have already been featured for those of you who watched the Ocean Funds roundtables, but if not, you're in for a treat today. I'm going to start with Carlos Esteban from Blue Pioneers, and he's the venture partner for this VC, and they're going to talk to you about their vision, what the fund is about, and how to know if you're eligible. So Carlos, over to you.
Thank you, Anna, very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, perfect.
That's great.
Thank
We
you.
can see you as well.
Great.
Hi.
Okay, yeah, I can present now. So thank you very much for the organizers for the opportunity to be here presenting you Blue Pioneers. This is a new fund. We will be fully operative, hopefully in January or February, early next year. We will have the first closing with a size of 20 million, and then a final target size a year later between 30 and 40. And our goal is to be a reference investor for the early stages of blue companies in general, companies that are trying to help the ocean and increase the sustainability using technology. We are quite focused with this part, with the technology, and our idea is try to help the entrepreneurs. You are the really blue pioneers. The name is not for us. We are just here to help. The real pioneers are the entrepreneurs and are the one that really needs to move forward the ecosystem. It's difficult to pass. Sorry. I think I messed the. Oh, okay, here. The buttons are very close. The focus that we want to have is startups that are having a positive impact in the ocean, not just that they are doing some activity in the maritime sector, but actually that they are helping to decarbonize or any other way to remove plastic or have a positive impact in the ecosystem with align with the SDGs, the number 14 and 13 for life underwater and climate change. Geographically, we are focused in Iberia, Portugal, and Spain, but also open to other countries in Europe. And we focus in early stages, in pre-seed and seed, and then some Series A's of the companies of the portfolio that will be progressing to that stage. Regarding the technologies, we are agnostic. We are open to any company that is doing activity in marine biotech, in food and fish. That is where aquaculture can be fitted. In ocean health, removal of plastic from the ocean, intelligent ocean, any kind of sensors and data and information that you can get to help in the sector, and then water tech, mainly desalination technologies, and some related to renewable energy that is happening offshore. With regarding the aquaculture, it can be our focus mostly is in technology and enabling companies, not just in companies operating the facility, but companies developing technology that will help the operators in the sector. So having cameras or sensors to have better data and have a better operation, or a new feed that is more healthy for the fish and less contaminant. So mostly try to develop some technology that is helpful and is easy to scale. This is linked to our investment criteria. That, as I mentioned, it has to be related to sustainability. The entrepreneurs are very important. They have to be aligned. A team has to be working well together, and the technology has to be sound, but also it has to be a company that is investable by venture capital, that not all the models of the companies are. There can be very nice companies that is giving a nice lifestyle for the entrepreneur, but are not scalable enough to be invested by a venture capital. And also bear in mind that when a venture capital invests, the company is for sale from the first day. I mean, in 3 to 5 days, So if in 3 to 5 years, you are looking to sell the company. So if this is a personal project, you are very involved with the technology, you want to remain controlling the evolution of the company in the next 20 years, you might need some other kind of financing, an industrial partner, business angels, some kind of public funding. So also think about what is your goal and if you are aligned with an investor when you are looking for the funding. Regarding the people, Rita and I are full-time partners. She is based in Lisbon. She's a mechanical engineer by training and have experience in renewable energy. I am a biochemist and I am based in Barcelona. And we both have experience in venture capital. Then Bruno, he's an entrepreneur. He has his own company regarding bioprocesses and production of microalgae and other biological compounds and have a lot of industrial relations in this area. And then Raquel, the associate, she's a marine biologist and she's very involved in the sustainability aspect of the sea and also is very well connected within the Portuguese ecosystem. And what we offer is not just money, is to work along with the entrepreneurs. We plan to invest in very early stages. Most of these companies will be a spin-off from universities, so the entrepreneurs will be researchers. And at this time, it's useful to have someone to help you to shape and organize the company and provide connections that can help you to evolve the business, not just the technology, but also the business side of this company. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions or comments, I will be very happy to take them.
Great. And as I let people think about what you've just presented, I have a question for you, Carlos. So
Yep.
I'm sure you have and you meet, entrepreneurs and businesses that want you to invest in them. What is one thing you wish they knew before they approached you?
The most important is to know if you are a fit. I mean, if you are a fit for venture capital and for the stage of the fund, because we are, for example, a small fund, and some companies approach us and they are raising a round of 5 million. Then this is too much for us. We can invest between 100,000 euros and 3 to 4 million, but not in one go in the whole life of the company. So we need to invest early at the beginning and small amounts. If you need 5 million, I cannot provide them. It will have to be in a syndicate, and probably it's too much risk for us, and the percentage we can get is not that much. So you need to look for a bigger investment, a bigger investor in this area, and also the sectors or the impact. Sometimes they have nice activities, they are profitable, but they are not sustainable. They are not contributing to cleaning the ocean.
So impact is definitely important to you.
It's the match to know what is the interest of the investor, what are the stage of your company, and if there is a match in your activities and in the size of the financing that you require.
Great, thank you. Do I see any questions? No, that's great, because then we are actually well on time. And so I would like to introduce the next investor, so NBI investors. That's Bram, who is now on the call with us. Hello, Bram.
Hi.
Okay, so it's over to you, and let's see if you can just move the slides. I think you have the presenter.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great.
So, Shift Invest is I think one of the largest European impact funds out there, with a focus on several sectors: food and agri. It's circular, bio-based. It's advanced materials. We're looking for impactful, innovative companies across multiple stages. So we invest multi-stage, really early stage, in cooperation with all the Dutch technical universities and the Wageningen University, the food university in the Netherlands. But also invest in seed phase and in early stage and growth phase. Our fund is around 80 million euros. And to be quite frank, we're actively looking to find investment opportunities that fall in the SDG 14. but I'll come to that later. We've been active investors in the impact space, although it hasn't been called impact for that long. For over 10 years, invested in more than 30 companies, and for us, the balance between impact and financial return should be really a balance. So it goes hand in hand. We even tie our own financial incentives to impact targets that we agree with the entrepreneurs up front. So for us, it's a key element before we invest. It's the impact targets that we discuss with the company. So our team is roughly 15. As I told just now, it's a broad focus, but it's all impact and it's all helping companies scale to the next phase. So for instance, we can start at the university and bring it from a lab skill to a pilot skill, and then to a demonstration skill, and even to a full commercial skill if we're talking about production. That also includes software-related deals, as long as there's a measurable impact to it. Find the button. So we base our impact focus also on the SDGs, probably well known to everyone. Not all of them, and sometimes it's even hard to measure, but we work with an impact committee that challenges us, our investment team, on the impact targets. Just a few examples of portfolio companies. They're in the energy space. They're in insect breeding. It's called Protix. They make fat and proteins for the feed industry. We are in alternative meat fibers, alternative proteins. We're in circular bio-based technology that converts organic waste streams into medium chain fatty acids. I won't go into the technical details of it, but if you're in, let me know. But also active in the mobility and logistics space. But I think what my question is to everyone out there is these are just a few examples of our portfolio company, but we are definitely actively looking to fill those 2 or even more spots in our portfolio, because we do think that this SDG specifically is really important, but it's quite hard to find the deals that are scalable, venture capital, open to venture capital, not just a project, as was said before by Carlos. It's typically not a project that we back, but it's typically a company, entrepreneurs that want to scale their business global scale. I think that's it. We wanted to keep it short and maybe challenge the audience for a couple of questions. It's always difficult in a hybrid session. So thanks a lot.
Great, thank you. And just in case you missed it, Bram Ledeboe is the partner for this fund, for this VC. And I'm just checking to see if there are any questions in the room. But Bram, just because we've got entrepreneurs here, and I think what's the most exciting part of your presentation is that you're actually looking to invest. What are maybe critical success factors that made you decide to invest in the portfolio that you have? I saw what looks like a very interesting portfolio. What made these companies or these projects resonate with you as an investor?
Yeah, and there's many items that we look at, obviously, but team comes high on the list, and team comes high on the list 3 times actually. And then we look at the impact and the scalability of the company, and in the end, the bottom line question that we ask ourselves and the entrepreneurs should answer to themselves: honestly, is there alignment with the team going forward? Do we understand each other in similar goals going forward, which is, I guess, one of the key aspects next to standard stuff as the business model work and finance in order, technology strong enough. There are some barriers to entry that not anyone can start a similar business on the same day. But so alignment is key.
Okay, that's great. So what I hear though is and this is a question that comes up quite a lot, because there's a lot of movement right now on ESG reporting, on impact investing. For your venture, how do you assess the impact of a company that is pitching to you, or of a technology that is pitching to you? Do you have any benchmarks that you tend to use? And for example, what benchmarks are you going to use to assess your portfolio under SDG 14?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We've been working on it for years, so we have developed our internal assessment for it. The basis is to use the theory of change. So, to what extent is the technology or solution going to make a difference compared to the existing solutions out there? We discuss with the companies around the metrics that are appropriate for that business, because it's sometimes CO2, sometimes it's biodiversity, even more difficult to measure. Sometimes it's water use, or it's reduction of certain toxic chemicals going out into the water, for instance, or energy efficiency. So it's tailor-made for each investment we do, and close cooperation with the company, we set the target and we test it against an independent impact committee that we have established.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bram. I've got a question from Christophe Legrand from Local Ocean. They're a young company, and he is asking, where do you invest, what size and what amounts? And then I also have one further question from an entrepreneur, but anonymously. How do you see cell-based cultured food and feed? So you have two questions, and we've got maybe about a minute to answer.
All right. Well, the first one is, so we have around 80 million euro fund, so we invest all the way up to like 10 million per investment, typically in a tranched phased approach. The smallest ticket size we do is 250,000 euros for proof concept phase. So that's one. I've got 30 minutes to answer the cell-based question, which is impossible, but I don't have anything against it, not at all. I think it all boils down to what's the input you need for it, what's the process look like for scaling up, and is that economically viable? But I'm happy to have the discussion around, do we need to mimic meat, or can we just eat vegetables sometimes instead and make our lives more easy? But I'm really in favor of all the developments that are going on, because it's going to deliver solutions.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you so much, Bram. There was one other question that I will answer. Is there a diagnostic tool that SMEs can use to filter and identify potential investors by funding size, sector, and developmental stage? Well, not in one specific tool, although I'm familiar with some that are being developed. But from the EU perspective, you should check out dealroom.eu. They are linked to a European program, and you can find them on the European Commission's website. So that tool is linked to a database of investors that allows you to exactly filter in terms of location, funding size, sector, and so on. So I think this, just off the top of my head, to answer your question, we can send you the link after the session. It's I think dealroom.eu. Okay. You also should check out I think with the BlueInvest community on Euroquity, because it gives you visibility on investors as well. So last but definitely not least, we have Jacques de Cercles. He's the investment manager for Telos Impact. Jacques, over to you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm Jacques de Cercles, indeed investment director of Stellar Impact. Obviously, it's not me on the picture. I don't have as much hair as this guy, but do my best. Stellar Impact is not really a classic venture capital vehicle in the sense that we've been created by a wealthy Belgian family that is active in the food industry, with the objective to support startups that have or might have the potential to cause systematic change in the environment. What leads us to our second key characteristic is that we are a true impact first fund. So when I go to my investment committee, the first question I have is, what is really the true impact of that company? So if I take, of course, all the externalities, so the new impact created by the new solution, is it really better than the issue that I'm trying to solve, than the product that I'm trying to replace? So really, is the solution better than the issue from the environmental point of view? And it's not an easy question, but that's really our first focus, I would say. And then, of course, the next questions are much more classic. Is the company viable? Does it have what it takes to scale? What is their secret sauce, competitive hedge, etc. And the last characteristic, which makes us a bit, I would not say unique, but particular maybe, is that we are evergreen funds. So we do not have really a fixed investment horizon, which means that we do not have to sell our participation or investment after a fixed period. And we are lucky enough to have very patient shareholders. So we don't have any pressure to invest. So it's a bit strange in a way, but we have really the time to select the best in class company. And what our investors are asking us is really to partner with them for the long term and to try to help them as much as possible. So the idea is not to stay with them forever, of course. We are looking for some liquidity at a point in time, but not in the short term. So we are looking for solutions that are reducing water pollution, enhancing sustainable food, plastic pollution, and carbon reduction. Our sweet spot is the Series A, so that we define as companies having sales around 1 million euro, or that is about to reach 1 million euros. We invest mainly today in Europe and in Israel, and we invest usually tickets from 2 to 5 million as first tickets. Currently, we have 5 investments in our portfolio. We have insect farming as well. We have a decentralized water treatment. We have natural fertilizer, a smart agtech company that we're closing actually this week, and another ground coffee recycling company. So we still have room for much more companies. In terms of team, today we are 6 persons. We have a good network of advisors. We also, from time to time, invest in other funds when we see that there is really some competences that we don't have, really specific competencies. So we usually have a good network of, I would say, of friendly funds with which we invest in. And we are based out of Brussels today, and we have a small office as well in Paris. So for the moment, we are as well looking for, not looking, but really hunting for a solution in sustainable aquaculture. So I'm very lucky to be here. And if you have a good impact solution in that sector, we will really love to hear from you. So
Great. Thank you very much, Jacques.
Yeah,
That's really good. I mean, I heard that you are looking for sustainable aquaculture solutions, and then you mentioned earlier as well that the areas your portfolio is centered on are in water pollution, sustainable food, plastic pollution, and carbon reduction. And I'd like to put forward to you, because you want to really focus on true impact. Do you have the same question that I asked Bram? Do you have any tools or benchmarks you use to measure this impact? Because there are a lot of different tools, but there's not so many standards really that are in place. So is there anything that you know you
I
would
completely agree to you. It's a jungle out there in terms of a framework from measuring impact. We do have as well an internal framework that we've been developing for the past 3 years. And to be completely honest, it's a continuous work. So we have one person that is spending lots of time trying to understand and to deep more in that. The main issue, of course, is to find a framework to be able to compare all the different solutions. And it's even more complicated, as you say, if they are in different sectors, and to really be able qualitatively and quantitatively to note and to my favorite is to add some cost when you see some negativities, some negative elements in the business model, and to see how that plays out. But unfortunately, I'm also looking in for really standardized regulatory or impact framework, but it's still an ongoing process, I think.
Yeah, that's great. And I hope you managed to maybe engage also with Maura's presentation on the investment decision-making framework for sustainable finance principles for aquaculture, because as he was saying earlier, you know, it's a tool that is evolving and that they're continuing to develop, and they're going more into this kind of granularity. But thank you so much, Jacques. This is really useful, your intervention. I don't see any further hands raised. I'm just checking the questions here, which is great, because then we can start with there's one question actually from the front. Can we have a microphone over on that side, please? So we have one question for you, investors.
Thank you. Just additional questions in the context of sustainable investments regarding the business model. Do you have a certain minimum expectation of return of investment, or the timing of a exit period, which you, let's say, is the minimum for you to look at as valuable project?
Is there an exit period that you take as the minimum?
This is the and the ROI and the return of investment, because
and the return of investment as a minimum. And maybe we should address that question to all three investors. So maybe we can start with Carlos, and then Bram, and then Jacques.
Yeah, I think the question was if for the impact companies, what is the return that has to be? It's the same that if we are any kind of investors. It's not because they have impact is good enough to invest. It also have to be profitable, because at the end we need to return the money to our investors. So the project has to be profitable. usually between 3-5 times. This is what you expect at least. If it is more, and the better. But at the end, you know, many companies will die in the process, so you need to have some higher multiples. But that it has an impact is a plus. So is a must, but is not enough to not have an economical return. This also has to be in there. If there is a venture capital involved, they have to return the money to their investors. So it's not a non-for-profit investment. So it has to be a profitable company.
Bram?
Yeah, not much to add. In the end, you're looking to invest in all good companies with all good impact and return. But indeed, the statistics show that a few or even the majority is not going to return back and financial returns that you're looking for. So the remainder of the portfolio should cover for that. So we can never answer the question, what's the return that you're looking for one specific deal? Because I'd love to have it uncapped in terms of potential, right? So that's our model. So if you look at project financing, for instance, or project equity for a certain project that you know the parameters much better than you know it from, you know, for a high risk, high return profile company, then it's a more logical question to ask what type of return you're looking for. So we're trying to shoot for the moon, but keep both our feet in solid ground as well.
Okay, thank you. Jacques, anything to add?
No, I don't have any. I agree with what has been said. So it really needs to have the solution needs to be profitable, to really have an impact. Although, of course, if you really have a silver bullet to change completely one sector and to make it completely sustainable with low return, we may have a look at it as well. But we would prefer indeed, usually it's you have a correlation between indeed the impact a company can make and its profit.
Okay, thank you, Jacques. Before I go in, because we should start the pitch session already, and I've got our companies already online and in the room with us. Can I see a show of hands between yourselves, Jacques, Bram, and also Carlos? Are you using the EU taxonomy? So this is a question that's been raised. Are you using the EU taxonomy yet to assess the impact of your companies? So raise your hand if you are. Okay. So the EU taxonomy, sorry, go ahead.
Not yet.
Not
We are
yet.
developing methodology.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Great. So I think we're going to move on to the pitch session. And the mechanics of this session is that each company will go forward and they will pitch themselves to you, investors, in 5 minutes. And then we stop them at exactly 5 minutes. And then you have 5 minutes to raise your questions or give them feedback on their pitch. If you want to raise a question, raise your hand. So keep your video on, investors, because I need to see your hands raised. Or you can also use, you're on the WebEx, you can use the raise hand function on the WebEx, and I will determine the order by which you will each speak, okay? So the companies have been prepared. They've been trained to pitch to you today. Hopefully, and we're rooting for them, hopefully one of them will be interesting enough for you who are looking to expand your portfolios. So without further ado, we're going to start with algonomy. And for algonomy, Roy, are you in the call? Roy Nyberg.
I am indeed, yes.
Great. Okay, Roy, can you try to see if you can move the slides? Great.
Yes.
Okay, Roy, over to you. Let's start.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody, from my part as well. My name is Roy Nyberg. I am one of the 6 co-founders and the CEO of Algonomy, which is a microalgae ingredients business from Finland. Many of you may be familiar with other microalgae cultivation businesses, but as you will see in the following, our concept is quite distinct and is a basis, we think, for a great business and a scalable business particularly, and also importantly responds to the needs of the contemporary times in terms of the sustainability aspects. So why do we need microalgae? Well, there's a recent report by 3 UN agencies, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the UN Environmental Program, and the Development Program, which pointed out that current agriculture accounts for 25% of carbon emissions, 70% of biodiversity loss, and 80% of deforestation. So it's clear that we need new methods and thereby new ingredients. At a more specific level, there are clear needs in food and other industries for plant-based, sustainably produced, and of course, well-performing ingredients. And we know this because we've been talking to potential clients in these industries. And even right now, I'm actually in Geneva at Vita Foods in food industry trade fair, getting this message very much. So what do we actually do? We use different microalgae strains to produce biomass and extracts, that is fatty acids, vitamins, antioxidants, pigments, and so forth. And then we sell them as high-value ingredients to clients in different industries, such as cosmetics and the food industry to start with. And third, in our production process, we capture and reuse CO2. So how do we actually do it? So this is a picture of our production concept. So we use different microalgae strains to produce biomass and extracts. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, how do we execute our concept is you can see our production process here, where we place our bioreactors next to a factory that emits CO2 into the atmosphere. So we take some of that or all of that CO2, depending on the volumes, into our bioreactor process. We produce the biomass, on which then we use chemical extraction methods to produce the extracts, such as the fatty acids, vitamins, antioxidants, and pigments, so forth. So the first industries we have clients in are cosmetics and food industry, and these omega-3 EPA and DHA fatty acids are one of the product areas that we're preparing to offer our clients, to be followed by many others. So we are at the beginning of our journey, but we already have some traction, namely early sales to a cosmetics industry client, conversations with domestic and international clients, and we have also a pilot production site agreed. We were the finalist in the Sustainable Food Systems Challenge last year, and we have been participating in various accelerator and coaching programs. For example, right now, the BlueInvest coaching, as well as the EIT Food Seedbed program. And lastly, we're also partnering with GEA, the large German conglomerate for food industry equipment. So our concept contributes to 7 different SDGs, including making the food system more sustainable and reducing the CO2 emissions. But we think the most important for us is the SDG in the middle, the number 12 of responsible consumption and production, which we think of as consumption without consuming the earth. So as I sort of mentioned already, our concept is quite distinct from our competitors. So here is a select list of them. And what they typically do is they produce mostly bulk products, have very high upfront investments, and operate with only a few strains. In contrast, our concept focuses instead on high-value products. We take a large range of strains that we try to exploit for different properties, and we validate our concept with a small capex initial investment. And finally, we have this capture and reuse of CO2, which really is quite different, that really other algae producers don't usually have. So this is our vision for scaling the concept. So as you know, scaling a manufacturing operation tends to be quite difficult to do exponentially. as they usually scale only in sort of a linear fashion. But our concept, we think we can scale exponentially. So as we're able to generate more demand for our bioactive ingredients, we add new bioreactors, but in clusters. So the idea is that we will then add technicians to manage these bioreactors, but only incrementally. So on average, we would have, say, 2 technicians per up to 10 bioreactors. So eventually we will end up with up to 150 bioreactors across Europe in this vision, with about 30 technicians maybe managing all of them. So what we then produce 600 tons of biomass with over 1,000 tons of CO2 captured and reused. And finally, who are we? We
Roy,
are.
you've actually exceeded the 5 minutes, but what I can do is I can ask the investors, do you want to give Roy an additional minute to talk about his team? Just nod your head. Okay. Yes. You have 1 more minute, Roy. Talk about your team, but then give them time to ask you questions.
Thank you very much. So we're a team of 6 co-founders made up of management and commercialization expertise, of algae, deep algae expertise, as well as virology and GMO expertise. And we've come together to solve some of the critical problems and needs by exploiting microalgae properties to their fullest. And just the last point, so what we're looking for is we're looking for investors who are like-minded to us, interested in finding more sustainable production methods, as well as who see much potential in microalgae like we do. So we're seeking 400,000 euros to start production with our first bioreactors, start sales activities, as well as capital needed in order to apply for public grants for product development. And I end here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Roy. So who wants to ask the first question? Yes, Carlos, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions about the CO2. What I understand is that you inject this, and when you increase the concentration, the microalgae grow faster, they are happier, so the yield increases. But how easy it is to collect it from the industry that will give it to you? How easy it is to isolate and bottle it and give it to you to put it in the process? And how dependent are you on this? If they are not able to supply enough, or they decide not to give it to you for any reason, or to increase the price, do you need to buy it? You can do it at a lower yield, or what will happen in this situation?
Yes, thank you for the question. So first of all, we could take the CO2 from a bottle. So just buy a CO2 bottle and provide those algae that we are aiming to cultivate that use CO2 in that way. But what we want to do, because algae has the properties to help with this problem that we have with CO2 in the world, we will place our bioreactor next to a source, a factory, or a different kind of source for a brewery, for example, and take the CO2 from there. So what we do, we run a pipeline to their source. So it's not bottled separately, but actually we'll draw a line directly into our bioreactor from that. There, of course, needs to be studied first the sort of concentration of the CO2 in the gas that comes from there. But we've already done preliminary studies for the pilot production.
The business model is like a joint venture with the brewery, or what will be the business case?
Well, we offer to them that we lower their carbon footprint. So our company it's not a joint venture with them. We offer that to them. If they're interested, they will give it to us. And we already have a couple of sort of cases that we've discussed for the pilot production plant. Maybe somebody might say no, but we think most of them will be interested in lowering their footprint. And at this point for free. Maybe later on, if with larger quantities, we might actually charge a fee for this service.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jacques, Bram, if there are no other questions. Yes, Jacques, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. No, one thing that was not very clear to me, what is what's the name the technology readiness level of the solution? Where are you exactly in terms of maturity?
So the technology, in some ways, you could think that what our technology is really the algae algae strains, and so we have deep expertise in variety of algae strains. My colleagues are algae biologists from the university research background. So we will use closed bioreactors, and that we will get from a partner, engineering company, a partner that has been designing for us the bioreactor, bespoke bioreactor with lots of different kinds of sensors that we've been sort of advising them on. So really our technology is how the algae behaves and the different properties in them. The bioreactor will then, it's sort of external to us, but, and so I would say that we are at TRL level maybe 5. So we've made one sale already to a client on biomass, but then there are other ones. So the next sales will be maybe more specific extracts like fatty acids or things like that. And the bioreactor it's new to us, but this is an engineering company that we have a lot of trust in, so we think it'll work just fine. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but
I'm going to give it to Bram because he also raised his hand, but then let's keep it to under a minute. Bram, go ahead.
Sure. I think it's very interesting. Two questions. How much capital do you need beyond the 400K going forward to scale up? And where is your IP, or do you have any patents or the like?
So first, the IP question. So far, we have no IP. We haven't sought any patents. Well, intellectual property we have in the expertise, the knowledge of my colleagues particularly, and of course also we've now gathered market knowledge as well. But we will develop proprietary compounds, whether combining a couple of different strains or whether combining different sort of bioactive properties. So we will seek eventually IP for those products. But this 400K will get us going. We can start actually producing and selling also. So this is not a thing where we need to first develop 2 years or 3 years for something. We can start once we get the bioreactor, we can start selling already products. And but the next stage, then we will expand on the bioreactors, like I talked about these clusters. So in the same location, probably another set of a larger scale. So, but these are not in the millions, but it will rather be in say 100,000 per case or less than that, depending on the size and so forth, to give you an idea.
All right. Thanks a lot, Roy.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Roy. There was actually also a question to you on whether you could tell us a bit more about the factory pilot, but we have run out of time. So we're going to direct that question to you. Let's see if we can connect you with the person who was asked. I want to go to the next company so that we give all the entrepreneurs enough time and also the investors enough time. But thank you so much, Roy.
Thank you.
I would like to give the floor now to João Cotter from Aquaponics.
Hello,
João?
good afternoon.
Hi, great.
Hi.
Over to you.
Okay. We've developed a modular technology to increase aquaponics sustainability, productivity, food safety, and reduce production costs to grow the best, fresh, and tastiest fish and greens, supplying healthy and sustainable conscious consumers in large cities in a totally circular and farm-to-fork approach. I'm João Cotter, and this is the Fish and Greens project. It's fresh and pure food from sustainable, highly efficient aquaponics technologies. And we are Aquaponics Iberia. Our multidisciplinary team has an extensive experience in aquaponics and aquaculture systems and food in general. Closed-loop balanced aquaponics are symbiotic ecosystems where nutrients generated by fish are assimilated by plants, recycling water back to fish and eliminating water waste. This is especially interesting and trustable to consumers since medications and pesticides evidently cannot be used. However, problems exist in this kind of systems due to long-term solid waste accumulation, affecting plants, reducing productivity, increasing maintenance interventions, production downtimes, and commonly leading to system collapse in the end. After 4 years of R&D, we have created a technological solution that addresses all of these, keeping high productivity levels on the long term while assuring all aquaponics virtues, sustainability, and organicity for consumers. How? We improved the fine particles retention and infiltration system, screening all solid waste. However, this efficiency comes with a cost. With less nitrogen to process, the biofilter delivers less nutrients for the plants. So, what have we done? We added an extra loop to the system, which processes all the sludge through an aerobic biodigester. Solids are converted into natural liquid fertilizer, while residual solid waste is an excellent byproduct for organic agriculture. Liquid fertilizer is then automatically delivered to the main loop according to the monitored readings, turning the nutrient levels in the main loop stable and ideal for plant growth, and no more solid particles affecting plant roots. So our climate smart module technology is the new generation of aquaponics systems because in the end we are reducing waste of water, maintenance and downtime costs, and we are increasing control and monitoring dissolved oxygen, and this means higher growth rates, higher productivity in very limited space, and much higher food safety. And this technology is already validated, but the technology is not our product. Our technology is what makes us grow the best sustainably certified and tastiest fresh food in the world, in the most cost-efficient, sustainable, and healthier way. Fish and Green system grows 120 tons of fish and 400 tons of pure ultra-organic vegetables, complying with all conscious consumer trends. It's food you can trust and close to you. Our technology, our food and Fish and Greens addresses all these sustainable development goals. And through our food, we are filling the consumer gap by meeting the trending triads of demand for healthy and sustainably produced fresh food from local trusted sources. As soon as our first system is implemented, we intend to make money by selling the best fresh, local, and sustainable fish and vegetables, mainly through B2B, like food retailers, and some of them are already enrolled, as you may see. Also restaurants, hotels, and other businesses, reaching more than 4,000 families. The production facilities will hold a building for aquaculture equipment and a service area and a modern greenhouse for aquaponics. The climate smart modules are validated at TRL 8, and we are now scaling it to 10 modules in this first 9,000 square meters unit. We are planning to install it very close to highly populated Lisbon metropolitan area. Later, we will expand to the outskirts of other European cities through the replication of this concept. For this first setup to be implemented, including land, equipment, labor, licensing, certification, testing, working capital, and beginning of operations, it involves a total investment of 3 million euros and a total period of 15 months. As you may see, this is a considerably profitable system due to its efficiency and productivity. This project will also have a payback period of 3 to 4 years, while having an average ROI of around 50% per year. And we are raising 3 million euros for this first unit, and we are willing to negotiate with you if, like this, you can see a great investment opportunity here. This project brings together a set of arguments that are very attractive to nowadays investors, namely its technology, its strong sustainability and consumer trends focus, its profitability, its replicability, and the experience theme. Thank you for listening. Get in touch with me, with us, and don't miss this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Joao. I was just going to cut you off, but you did it before I could. That's great.
Just in time.
So who would like to start? Carlos or Jacques? Okay, so first Jacques and then Carlos.
Well, thank you for this presentation, very interesting. 2 questions. The first one is, I understand that the fishes are better and more happy with what you do. Is it possible for you to pay a premium or to have a premium when you sell the fish, or is it really a standardized product? And the second question is, do you intend as well to sell the technology directly to other producers?
Very interesting questions. Regarding the fish, there are two sides, 2 points of views here, because we are growing fish in a more like almost organic way. So despite being high density, so it cannot be organic just for that issue. But on the other side, the fish species we are growing are freshwater. So this means usually mainly for the South European consumer, they are usually not used to freshwater fish, despite they consume it, and most of them usually do not know they are consuming freshwater fish. But we are here producing in a more sustainably approach and more organic approach, and also in a certified way. So with a certification of sustainability, ASC certification, Friend of the Sea certification. So this is like a premium. So, but we for now in our business plan we are leveling this fish according to the price of the standard aquaculture produced fish, like a sea bass or sea bream.
Thank you. Carlos?
There's what the other question. The other question, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. If you intended to commercialize the technology.
No, we have been commercializing the technology, but that's not our intent. We have been doing that so that what allowed us to invest in the technology, the revenues from the sales, and using these systems to develop the technology. But we intend to focus only in this project.
Thank you. Carlos, go
This
ahead.
was also my question. What is the scalability? If you are going to operate the new facilities, and this means that for 10 different cities, you will need 30 million, 3 million each to construct 10 facilities, or if you plan to license the technology and have part of the revenues that the operator is having there, because then the way you finance this is very different. But you already mentioned that you plan to do it internally.
Yes, this is more at a certain time. This becomes a business of training new teams and having the growing to new markets already being planned, the licensing, all the local legislations and so on. For now, we are currently, despite we are already a bit advanced on that area, because we are already thinking in another market, but we are currently more focused on the first facility, on the first team.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you have any questions, Bram, but if not, we can then move on to the next company. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
That's great because Jorge Dot from Innova Kim is actually here today. And so, hello, Jorge.
Hello, thank you. Check. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Dot, and I would like to introduce you to our company, Innova Kim. So we are a R&D company which develops innovative solutions for the blue economy. We have been accredited by the National Innovation Agency of Portugal, and it means that we invest in our company has tax benefits for that. We are supported by different funding programs from Europe, Portugal, and Madeira. This is our team. Our team sums up more than 115 years of expertise in engineering. And our solution. We call it Twin Wind Aquaculture Madeira, TWAM. Okay, so this solution is linked to the human development. We think that the human development depends on energy, mainly on energy and food. Okay, and we have a solution for that with agriculture and renewable power generation. We have combined both technologies, offshore power generation through multi-turbine floating platforms with offshore aquaculture. This combination is technically possible, and we want to show that it is environmentally and economically viable. And we are going to prove it applying circular economy and eco-efficient engineering concepts. Our Hexicon platform is an island in the middle of the ocean, and it allows us to integrate aquaculture business with energy generation. This artificial island could be installed in deep waters up to 500 meters and very far from the shore. So we avoid a lot of problems that we have now with the aquaculture business. New possibilities for both sectors, aquaculture and energy, appears, boosting sales and cost reduction in a sustainable way. These are our partners, local and international, and we work with the patented Hexicon solution for offshore wind energy generation. It's a company from Sweden. And our development plan. Okay. So for our TWAM project, we have also reached the TRL 3, the first phase. We have invested around 1.8 million euro. And now we are going to begin the feed stage, and we are going to invest 1.5 million euro to reach the TRL 5. It will be finished in 2 years' time from now. And after that, and before beginning construction of the demo project, we will do the detailed design. And for that, the total investment will be around 2.5 million. So in 2026, we will be ready to build our demo project and to demonstrate our solution. The market is huge. Our market is linked with the development of the floating solution in the world. And only in Europe, the market in 2030 will be around 70 gigawatts of power in offshore. And we want to work with this market, providing our solution for this market, joining the aquaculture system with the floating platforms to be developed. So we are focusing Iberia, in our Iberian market, and our sum will be around 20% of this market. And it means around 80 platforms in 2030 and around more than 80 million euro of revenues for the company. The business model is based on project licenses, so we are going to license our solution and sell the patents, the royalties, also technical services, and of course, at the end, energy sales and fish sales as minority shareholders of the SPVs. For our customers, they will invest in SPVs and they will get revenues in energy sales up to 8 million euro per platform and year, and fish sales up to 10 million per platform and year. So we are looking for investors for a long-term commitment, 20 years or plus, but it will be possible exit in 4 or 5 years if this is the business model of the investor. We are asking for 2 million euro against 30% of equity and 2.5 million euro as a shareholder zone. This shareholder zone, we think that we will be able to cover it with the grants that we are going to get in the next 3 to 5 years.
Great, thank you very much, Jorge, and thank you for keeping with the time. I don't see any hands raised from the investors. Okay, Carlos, let's start with you.
Thank you for the presentation. Very nice project. But can you elaborate a bit more about the benefits of doing it together and doing it offshore? I guess you have the free energy to run the aquaculture facility about this, and you don't have this visual impact of having the cages near to the coast, but you also have logistical problems of having to go farther away to feed the fish, and for one offsets the other. And what is the cost per platform? You say that the benefit is about 10 or 8 million for energy or fish, but what is the investment in the platform itself?
Okay. The investment in the platform is it depends on the power of the platform. If we have 2 turbines of 10 megawatts, it is 20 megawatts. The investment will be around 40 to 50 million euro. The total investment. You have to add there the investment in the cages. Okay. And the first question, sorry, was about the advantages. Okay.
Yeah. What is the benefit of doing it together and farther away than doing it separately?
Okay. Yes. So the floating platform is an island in the middle of the ocean, as I told before. Okay. And this is not a small island; it's a big one. Because this kind of platform with 2 turbines of 10 megawatts each, the surface is around 3 to 4,000 square meters of a structure in the sea, okay, 20 meters over the sea, and the turbines could be up to 120 meters. So we are talking about a system that perhaps doesn't fit in this hotel, in the whole hotel. Okay, so then from there we produce electricity. Once you produce electricity and you have enough space, you can do a lot of other businesses, other industries, and one of them is aquaculture. Why not? Because we have electricity, so we have power. We can feed the fish, and we can do a lot of operation because we have energy and we have a stable structure in the middle of the sea. Okay. In fact, you can go with a ship to our platform, or you can go with an helicopter, and you can live there if you need, and you can stay there taking care of the fish and taking care of the turbines.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions from the other 2 investors. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really good to see you. Let's move on to Tom Scope from NovaQ. Sorry, next tuna. Tom? I think the slides are not correct because we're supposed to be Tom Scope from NovaQ, but here we have next tuna. Josephine, can you see which slide is the next one?
I'm definitely from NovaQ, so happy to.
There, yes. Hi, NovaQ. Next tuna is here right beside me. I'm feeling the pressure. Who's the next presentation? It is NovaQ.
Yes, we will have NovaQ right now.
Okay, thank you. Tom, turn your video on again and let's see you. There we go.
Yeah, hopefully I can move the slides. Super. Hi, my name's Tom Scroop. I'm the UK manager for NovaQ, an Irish business focused on developing innovative solutions to improve the environmental sustainability of the sectors we work in. Today, I want to explain how you can help us to improve the water quality of recirculating aquaculture systems, aka RAS, and so help this sustainable method of protein production reach its potential. To recap then, RAS are on-land tank-based farms where water is reused, having been put through water remediation systems, including biofilters. We strongly believe that RAS have a crucial part to play in feeding the world more sustainably. But poor water quality in current RAS designs are stopping RAS fulfill this potential, either due to mortalities or just poor fish welfare and performance. The bacteria currently used in biofilters simply aren't doing a reliable or thorough job of getting rid of toxins and contaminants. It's estimated that around 25% of mortalities in RAS systems comes from poor water quality. And even in systems where mortality is less of an issue, poor water quality leads to elevated levels of contaminants like Josmin or MIB, and the so-called off-flavor compounds. So NovaQ have developed a new approach which can reliably remove the threat of pollutant spikes. We've taken 10 years of experience in using bacteria in wastewater treatment and applied it to the problem of poor water quality in RAS. Around 3 years ago, we took this experience and developed our RAS Right range of bottled bacteria products for RAS aquaculture with industry-leading stability and shelf life. Combining our unique consortia of bacteria with the active microbiome management approach we've developed allows us to keep the concentrations of our bacteria consistently high in the biofilter. So we're now actively scaling our solution across the industry in Europe and North America with satisfied customers, recurring revenue, and an ambition to change the status quo of how RAS farmers manage the biofilters of their systems. We want to create a new standard practice for the RAS industry. So key to this is building a strong base of data to prove that our innovative new approach to microbiome management can improve results for RAS farmers. We've already begun this work, and I'd just like to quickly run through a couple of case studies of how active microbiome management has actually worked in these real commercial scenarios. First up is a 500 cube grow-out salmon RAS in British Columbia. The facility had suffered persistently high levels of Josmin for the last 2 years, and the system was being operated with high water replacement rates to help maintain the water quality. So our bacteria were added from an on-site grow tank to the fluidized sand biofilter on day 8 and then weekly thereafter. As you can see here, after a month of active microbiome management, Josmin levels start a sustained fall. And after 100 days, Josmin levels fall below the 10 parts per billion target threshold. As of today, we're now about day 195. The low levels have been maintained since mid-July. Historically, the system had only been able to operate with very high levels of makeup water. Clearly, this increases the use per kilo of fish produced and thus also the environmental impact of the farm. So after 2 months of active microbiome management, the makeup water was reduced by nearly 3/4 down to design specification levels, and this has now been maintained since that point, which was back in early June 2021. Finally, as you can see here, the fall in makeup water was achieved while maintaining consistent nitrification and a downward trend in turbidity, as well as achieving that sustained fall in Josmin. So here we've just got the last 3 slides side by side to highlight that, showing the power of active microbiome management in a RAS biofilter as a tool for improving water quality and therefore the overall performance of the site. So here's the second recent example I wanted to really quickly run through. This time the focus was more on this core nitrifying function of the biofilter. In this case, a salmon par unit in Norway was having problems establishing adequate nitrification in their biofilter. They'd seeded the new 650 cubic meter RAS with commercial inoculant and added the par. Amendments to the feeding regime, additions of ozone weren't solving their problems, and the ammonia levels continued to rise up to above 7 parts per million. No conversion to nitrite or nitrate, and the increased water changes were the only factor limiting the ammonia levels from rising any higher than that. Our RAS Right bacteria were added directly to the fixed bed biofilter on day 0, so where the dotted line is, with subsequent follow-up doses over the next week, again following this active microbiome management approach. As you can see, we had an immediate reduction in ammonia levels, TAN down below 0.5 parts per million by day 11. Nitrite was present immediately, and then the fact we saw nitrite rise over the same time just shows how quickly the NOBs got to work. And then the final nitrite spike was only 2 parts per million and back down again below 0.5 very quickly. So we also have other trials we're just pulling together the data on at the moment, including an exciting project up at SAMS in Scotland, which has been tracking the microbiome in 3 replicate systems, which used our active microbiome management approach compared to 3 replicate controls that were simply seeded and then left to develop. And we're going to be publishing the results of that in the next few weeks. So please follow us on social media, LinkedIn, to stay up to date with this latest research. We're looking for new partners to help us continue to build this strong base of data, which is crucial in changing the status quo of how the industry manage RAS microbiomes. And that includes both academic collaborators as well as industry and investor partners. So please, anyone, send me an email if you'd like to explore this further. We believe RAS can help feed the world sustainably and help us to make sure that poor water quality doesn't get in the way of that. Thanks very much to BlueInvest for inviting us on today, and thank you all for watching.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So do I see any questions from the investors? So Carlos, I see you raising your hand. You can go first.
Thank you, Tom, for the presentation. Very interesting. I have a question. Is for any kind of contaminant or imbalance on the water, you use the same mixture in the microbiome, or you need to tweak it for the specific quality of water and contaminant, if it is more ammonia, nitrates, or organic compounds? You need to change it, or your bacteria will adapt the quality in any case?
We have a core range of these RAS, right? But we have additional products that we can add to target specific additional specific contaminants. But the main mode of action is kind of outcompeting any potentially pathogenic species with these beneficial bacteria by really swamping the system with good bacteria. I was reading an interesting book the other day comparing it to how they make some old-fashioned cheeses, where it's the same way. You swamp out potentially pathogenic species with good bacteria. So that's doing the main job against most contaminants. But as I say, we do have specific species that have specific, if they're breaking down specific toxins in the water as another mode of action on top of that, we can also do that.
And for the business model, you just sell the sachets with the bacteria. You do the service of maintaining the biofilter and analyzing the quality of water. How you go to the clients, and what is the economical exchange that you have with them?
It's two parts. So certainly the service and the advice that goes with the products is a key part of why people keep on coming back to us. And the business model at the moment is mainly focused on product sales and then some after-sale support kind of included. We're looking at the moment with a new distribution partner we have in Norway at adding that in as a more explicit kind of subscription model. So, maybe you get some service for free with the product and then additional levels on top. In terms of monitoring, we found most sites do all the monitoring that we'd need already, for these, ammonia and nitrate, they're generally monitoring that already, and they have that data at their fingertips. So we're not trying to take over the whole operation of their farm. Obviously, they still need to do that, but a lot of what we do is our expertise in managing the microbiome, and we definitely get questions more broad than just how to manage the production, and we've kind of come in
one last question, because I have experience with probiotics, and some of them implant in the intestine, some of them will go through, and commercially you want the ones that do not implant, because one dose is enough. In your case, you give the bacteria and they will remain in the biofilter, or also you need to keep seeding your bacteria, so you need to sell to them every month, and they need to keep buying the
that's a key part. That's a key part of the business model, is this ongoing sales, and that's key to active microbiome management. So you're right, we definitely get a question from farmers saying, why shouldn't I just do this for a couple of weeks at the start to get my biofilter established, and then it'll look after itself. That's a key part of why we're doing this research up at SAMS, to look at the difference in the microbiome over time in systems that had a continual weekly dose and systems that were just started. The data is coming out. What we're hoping to see is that there's a much more stable microbiome when you keep on dosing it. And in the other systems, while they may start out quite similar, they all diverge over time as natural bacteria brought in through the feed or the water. And we've definitely found that, obviously, while you can manage systems without constant dosing, lots of people already are, we get optimized results. So the Jasmine results speak to that. They were, they were producing fish, but in a suboptimal environment before they started this ongoing dosing. And interestingly, some of the most recent data that's come through, they missed a week's dosing. I think there was a bank holiday or something, and immediately some of the numbers spiked. I mean, they came back down. So there's encouraging evidence there. I think we need to do more work, and that's partly why I'm here today, to try and find partners to do and fund some of that work. But encouraging signs that you do need this constant dose.
Okay, thank you. And I think those are the questions that we have for you, Tom. Thank you very much. And definitely, no, it's good to have you today. And the tuna guys are always interesting for me because I love tuna. But the next person we've got next tuna, Paul Sindilariu, who is here with us today. So Paul.
Thank you very much, and thanks all of you for keeping with me and with us, because it's already late. I would like to introduce to you our company, Next Tuna. Where do we go down? No. Here, yes. Yeah. Let's start exactly with the issue that we want to solve. All tuna is wild catch, and tuna is the single most important seafood item in the European Union. There is an aquaculture activity for tuna, though, but this is all relying on wild catch input. At the moment, there are about 50,000 tons of production in the EU. However, the total license production is 73,000 tons, and this difference is due to the lack of input for these operation facilities. This would be as well our customers. You can see them on the right-hand side. And that is what we want to do. We want to create sustainable tuna, meaning we want to reproduce Atlantic bluefin tuna in recirculating aquaculture systems. We want to provide this sustainable input for the existing grow-out facilities in order to give them the green footprint, the certification that comes along with our product, being produced in a multi-trophic RAS system. The solution we want to implement is kind of copying the salmon business model, meaning we reproduce juveniles in the recirculating aquaculture system and sell robust 2 to 10 kilogram fish to the existing grow-out facilities compared to the super smalls that are on the market for the salmon industry. And we're going to receive a premium for this fish, for this sustainable input, being dry feed adapted, so no more need of bait fish feeding to the tuna. Our product will be AAC certified so that our customers, the grow-out facilities, can continue with the AAC certification, can reopen the European and US markets. And these fish are going to get adapted to the aquaculture conditions from generation to generation, because we want to learn from the salmon industry and want to do certain parts as well better, meaning we are going to own our own broodstock, implement a breeding program so that our fish become better from generation to generation. However, we are going to produce infertile fish in order to cope with the escapee issues that we know from the salmon industry, and as well in order to protect our breeding program from competitors coming later. However, you need to think this operation big, and this is what we are going to do. We developed even a big project you need to divide in steps. We divided into 3: development, construction of the facility and starting operation, and then operate the full product. We are in the middle of the development phase, which started it 1st of July this year. In this first development phase, it's site selection, permitting, so on, so on, so on. We are looking into a second funding at start of construction. We need to get the funding for the start of construction. We're planning this for mid-2023. We expect first revenues 25-26. We will plan to achieve full production in 2028 and then expand through satellite hatcheries based on the eggs we produce at headquarters, satellite hatcheries there where tuna are going to be produced or are produced. In this development phase, we have 3 key work streams: design, the production facility, meaning the research, scientific work, development work, which is going to be finished by beginning of next year. We're in the middle of it at the moment. Site selection and permitting. We are in the process of reserving 2 sites in the EU Mediterranean coastline. The permitting process for these sites, we have already started it. We plan to finalize this permitting process in 2023. And that's why I'm here. We need to finance our next step, the building and start breeding process. We expect a capital need of about 75 million, which we are going to define in detail within the next 2 years. Teams, partners, 2 of us are here. Then we have Andrew, our banker, financial guy, with long experience in project financing. Sarah, she's going to take care of the seafood marketing. She has experience in seafood marketing. Jan, our ABT specialist, and myself, I'm working for 15 years in building recirculating systems, running recirculating systems. And we have the network of our partners, which are part in this project. One hand, the Spanish Oceanographic Institute, the only institute in Europe running a recirculating system for Atlantic bluefin tuna. So they are running already this system, which we, in the same scale that we are planning to build our own systems. We are cooperating with AAC in order to get from the beginning the certification for our product. Sea Farming System is going to help us, the Norwegian company is going to help us with a specific RAS need for the tuna. and Wageningen Livestock Research. With them, we are going to develop together the breeding program and the infertility of our product. What have we done so far? We have financed the first development round, thanks to EIT food support and thanks to the German Ministry of Economics, which support our investors by giving them 20% kickback immediately and helping in the exit event. We are still needing to have a liquidity buffer, and that's what I would like to talk about.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. So do I see any questions from the investors? Okay, first let's start with Bram and then Jacques.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this presentation. I think I was triggered by the whole story and especially also the link with Wageningen University, that is one of our partners in our fund. So I'm happy to discuss with you further. As it comes to like venture capital, it's a large, very large round. So my question is, would it be possible to smaller steps in terms of capital raising to enable funds like us to come on board before you raise very large amounts?
Definitely. I mean, we anyhow need to kind of take it a bit stepwise. What we need to implement from the beginning is definitely the hatchery, because that is where the entire process starts, and we need to build up as fast as possible our own broodstock. We don't want to lose any time there, but we are definitely not reaching full production before 2028. So there is a time frame between being fully licensed and start construction and achieving the full production. And by the setup of our production plan, it's a modular concept, so we can very easy add more modules to the system and learn already from the first modules that we implemented. So these are most probably going to get better and eventually even cheaper.
Thank you. Jacques?
Maybe one follow-on question, if I may.
Go ahead, Bram.
How does this compare with the Dutch initiative in the south of the Netherlands called Kingfish? Do you know that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we want to do not a full cycle in RAS-based. We want to produce fingerlings because we know that very well from the salmon industry. Producing juveniles in a recirculating system, that's most probably the most profitable part of the salmon life cycle of the salmon industry. And that's what we're going to copy, because there is a certain risk in maintaining fish for their entire life cycle in a recirculating system, because these systems are never supposed to be empty. But if you do a in and out operation, you know that after 1 year of operation, you can disinfect, you can service, you can restart. And like this, you have a continuous production with different RAS systems, and you avoid this accumulation of risk issues that you have in grow-out facilities. And maybe on a later stage, we go deeper into the value chain, but that's definitely a later stage. Let's focus on what we know and what we know that is successful in a RAS environment.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Jacques, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe a candid question from my side, but what are the challenges of breeding tuna versus breeding salmon, or why hasn't it been done already?
It has been done, but it hasn't been done so successfully because mainly the protocol for tuna reproduction is available. There have been plenty of EU projects working on this, and even the industrial partners in this project were able to reproduce tuna. However, they were putting those fingerlings at a very early stage into the net cage operations. And if you look into the biology of the tuna, it's a warm-blooded fish, but it takes them minimum up to 2 to 10 kilo until they really develop this internal heating system. And from that time onwards, they are very resistant to changing water temperatures, to changing conditions. But before that, they are very vulnerable. And now what we know is that in RUS we can supply and we can give the fish very stable conditions, optimum temperature conditions. And so we can raise them, so we can bridge this very sensitive phase up to the 2 to 10 kilo. And then we sell a robust fish to the customer, to the grow-out facility. And then they can keep onwards in more or less the same way they were doing it at the moment, where they catch wild fish and feed them further. Now that we replace this wild fish with our RUS-based raised fish and providing the sustainable input for the industry.
Okay. Yes, Carlos, go ahead.
Yes, just one quick question. Thank you, Paul, for the presentation. I don't know the technology that you use for rendering the fish infertile, but do you think it might pose any kind of ethical question for the potential customers, that they will think, that they are kind of GMOs or they will not, or the animals are not treated fairly? Do you think it may have this kind of reputational issue with the final consumers of the tuna, or is something that you think you can manage the communication of that?
This protocol we are in the phase of developing now in these 2 years. It's gonna definitely not be GMO. There are other ways of, let's say, produce infertile fish. We haven't done the decision yet. We are developing this product or this part of our value chain, let's say, as we develop our company as well. But we identified it as a key factor to protect our main asset, which is the broodstock and the breeding program. Because we definitely sell to people which are in the industry, which know how to reproduce fish, and simply to protect ourselves from very easy followers, we decided that we want to look and that we are going to produce this infertile trait in the fish.
Okay, great. And I think that that wraps up our session. Thank you very much, Paul. It's really good to see you. And thank you, investor jury. Thank you, Bram and Jacques, and also Carlos for being with us today. And to the rest of you who've stayed in the room and listened to all the presentations, thank you very much. I hope you do give us your feedback. You will receive an email from us as well tomorrow with a link to a feedback survey. Engage with us. Go into the BlueInvest community, join us, let us know what your business plans are, what your business objectives are. We are still running the program until June next year. And there we are going to also have a couple other thematic workshops which are going to take place, which I also showed earlier. But rest assured that after June, the program, the BlueInvest platform, will again be relaunched. And there will be more, I think, the technical assistance, readiness assistance will again be offered. So this is going to happen. I hope you had a good time today and that you have gotten, I think, at least some food for thought, as well as inspiration. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we close the session.